on TV. Give me some of that sweet, sweet pep. Yes!
Welcome. We're all victims of the algorithm.
I don't know what this world is coming to.
Oh, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between. Yes, that is right. I am back on this special 4th of July edition of the Symphony of Thoughts podcast. Actually, I'm lying. There's nothing quite special about this podcast. Is just another podcast on another day, because holidays are just imaginary dates that we put symbolism and thoughts and ideology behind. But I will say, though, with this being the 4th of July, it is very important for us to remember on this anniversary of the day that Terry did not put in reverse.
Bag up, Terry. Put in reverse, Terry. Put in reverse. Oh, Lord, Jesus. Oh, Lord. Oh, Jesus. What you doing, Terry? Terry, what you doing?
Bag up, Terry. What you doing, Terry? Yo, shouts out to Terry. I hope he's fine and well on this 4th of July holiday weekend. But it also is important to remember that, yes, it is July. So that means Pride Month is over, y'all.
We bring in the studio this morning one of the gay rights activists, Mr. Should I call you Mr? Sure. Pepe Julian Onzima. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for
Good
having
morning.
me. Morning to you.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
Oh my God. Lord have mercy. Yes, that's right. It is no longer Pride Month. It is July, y'all. So we can't be gay anymore. Gotta pack it up, be straight for the next 11 months of the year. And I guess we'll see you all again next Pride Month, next June. We are delivered.
I'm not gay no more. I am delivered. I don't like men no more. I said I like women. Women. I said women. I'm not gay.
And now over to someone who apparently has not been delivered.
Representative Abe Hamadeth, Republican of Arizona and a rising star in the MAGA movement, has a senior live-in male advisor. And the two men, according to sources cited by sources, say they live together. Have I mentioned that they live together in Washington, D.C., and go on vacations together and work out together? There is a lot of pink smoke here. What may be a little gay sex scandal just in time for the last day of Pride Month. Hamadeth is a vocal opponent of gay rights. He's introduced legislation to ban the display of pride flags on federal property. He opposes quote-unquote gender ideology. It is always the closet cases who are the most vocal opponents of LGBT rights because they think it puts them above suspicion. So far above suspicion that they can live with hot men and vacation with hot men and post pictures shirtless or in their underwear without setting off anyone's or everyone's gaydar. And in what may be the biggest tell of all, the very first thing Representative Hamadeth did when he got to Congress was redecorate his office to look like something out of a British costume drama. He shared a pic of him in the White House wrapped in an American flag, wearing nothing but a square-cut red Speedo-looking thing. Hamadeth would, in that outfit, fit right in at a July 4th party on Fire Island this weekend.
Yes, another day in this lovely country and yet another possible closeted Republican candidate. Now, to be frank, none of us should be surprised by this, especially if you just fucking keep your eyes open and pay attention to what is going on. I mean, you could look at when the every RNC event, the Republican National Convention, every time there's one of those, Grinder in that area crashes. We had the Charlie Kirk Memorial that happened out here in Arizona after Charlie got Kirk. And sure enough, in Arizona, Grinder crashed. It seems like every time there's these events that you have large groups of Republicans meet up, Grinder then pops up with a bunch of faceless, nameless profiles overheating the server and causing it to crash. And you got to ask yourself why this is. Also, if you continue to, pay attention, there appears to be like countless closeted conservatives. Some of these people are married with kids, but they have gay sets on the side. We have seen it quite a few times with Republican men being caught cruising in bathrooms, and on the further, more extreme, more unfortunate side of it, of these Republican men touching little boys. Now, of course, pedophilia and homosexuality have nothing grouped together in common, but it's just very odd that every time you see one of these people caught cruising, or you see one of these cases of young boys being touched, it keeps being people on the right side of the political spectrum. And we shouldn't be surprised either, because quite frankly, as we have all learned to know, the right is the party that loves to say that being gay is a choice. And I think the devil is in the details. Like, words have meaning, and we have to pay attention to the words, the choice of words that they use when they promote their ideology. And their ideology is conservatism, and conservatism at its core seeks to promote and preserve traditional institutions, customs, and values. I think the key word within all of that is promote. And the definition of promote is to contribute to the progress, development, or success of an idea or a cause. Promote doesn't necessarily mean to live that life indefinitely. It means this is what you promote. You have these things that you may feel on the inside, but outwardly to others, you have to promote this idea. And the idea that conservatism promotes is white, heteronormative Christian lifestyle. That's all conservatism is, basically, in a nutshell, And as we all know, Christians are notoriously known to be the faith who likes to promote do as I say, not as I do. I remember getting into a debate with someone on Twitter one day, and they were like, oh my God, Christianity is the most played with religion. And I was like, yeah, you are correct. But the problem is that Christians play with their religion more than anybody else. I have spent my entire life being around a lot of different religious people with different religious ideologies. And for the most part, every other religious ideology, those people are very strict to what their beliefs are. You meet a devout Muslim and they pray 5 times a day, and they don't eat pork, and they do a ton in the name of Allah, and they don't ever disrespect their religion, and they practice Ramadan, and like they are very hardcore about their faith. But the problem is with a lot of Christians, they again promote do as I say, not as I do. And a lot of that comes down to a lot of these people's ideology, their thought process behind Christianity is that we're all sinners you're born a sinner, and as long as you give your life over to Jesus, you shall be saved. So a lot of people conceptualize that as, yeah, I'm born a sinner, I'm always sin, but I got baptized so I could keep sinning and keep asking God for forgiveness, and I'm gonna be good. But you motherfuckers over there, y'all ain't praising Jesus. Y'all haven't given your life over to Jesus. So even though you're doing the same exact thing that I'm doing, I believe in Jesus, so I'm all right. But you are a sinner that are going to burn in hell. So yeah, that is a bit of the playing with the religion that we see a lot of, and again, not all, I don't believe in absolutes, but quite frankly, a lot of Christians play with their own religion. But yeah, conservatism is aligned with Christianity because while all Christians are not conservatives, all conservatives are some form of Christian. And conservatism promotes the heteronormative lifestyle. Like I said, what is the American dream? The American dream is to get married and have kids and get a 9-to-5 and buy a house and go to church every Sunday and vote to maintain these traditional values. That's conservatism in a nutshell. And now the thing that I think that we really need to kind of, again, step outside of the box and kind of look at holistically is that a lot of times with these people, what it comes down to is we don't care what you do behind closed doors as long as you promote this outward lifestyle to all of those around you. And that's the reason why so often you see these Republican lawmakers who are fighting for pro-life and they're voting against abortion. But you better believe the second their side chick gets pregnant, they're paying for her abortion. These people like Abe, are voting against and very vocal against gay marriage. But they have live-in advisors, just like Abe. And, when you think about it, it's kind of better to do that on the side than to get caught cruising in a public restroom or get caught, passing out handies in the sauna. You gotta do that in the background, You gotta outwardly present this heteronormative lifestyle, but these other things you can do in secret and private, but shh, you gotta keep it secret. And this is quite frankly why I think they hate Pride Month. It's kind of like the audacity of these gay people being out and about and proud of who they are. Because you're not supposed to be proud of anything that's not heteronormative. That's supposed to be done behind closed doors. How dare you transition to the true gender that you feel, because you're supposed to cross-dress behind closed doors like Kristi Noem's husband, But hey, don't worry, because as all these Republicans have, taught us, if you ever get caught doing any sinful things, just blame it on the devil. That's all you got to do. I remember there was a guy, I forgot his name and what city he was in, but he had fell down a hill and got a concussion. And I want to say he was like a Mormon or something, and he got caught having a whole bunch of gay sets. And he was like, oh yeah, that was the result of the concussion that I got when I fell down the hill. But don't worry, I'm gonna go get fixed. I'll be good. Praise Jesus. I'm back to this heteronormative lifestyle. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and I am, again, not surprised that you have another person who is aligned with that side of the house that is living a secret life. Because, again, as I hear them and the words that they use about sexuality being a choice and the various actions that they continue to get caught doing. I think that's what it all comes down to, is a lot of these people are indeed actually closeted or questioning their sexuality, but the whole ideology behind conservatism is to promote this lifestyle of being in heteronormative relationships and producing children and living this quote unquote American dream. And all this other stuff is to be done behind closed doors. I don't know. Think about it as you continue to watch these people in their day-to-day lives, and I think you'll start to notice a trend with them.
3 letters.
1 word.
Ass.
And, you know, speaking of people possibly being closeted and kind of revisiting a character that we discussed last week, have y'all seen this story about Chud the Builder's ex-girlfriend who happens to be transgender coming out and kind of spilling the tea on the man?
Yeah, so last year, May 2025, I f***ed Chud the Builder. Women and femboys, they're the only people who want to act feminine. He sent me these texts with his baby mama, who was Latina, months later after a date. She said, "Go live happily ever after with a dude. Get him, girl." And then he said, back in the day, when women were made to be feminine, that's when society was the best and the least gay shit occurred. Every time women get out of hand, the femmes go back to the Roman days and dudes who are more femme than their fat girlfriends are. Women are so manly, dudes would rather fuck a femboy than come home to their GF. Bitches who act like dudes will call men gay for fucking femboys who are more feminine than they are, in quotes.
How dare you not want to come home and man with a pussy?
Sorry, babe, I'd rather fuck a girl with a dick than an N-word with a mid pussy like yours. Cry laughing emoji. My friend made a good point where she's like, yeah, bro, like you really owned your baby mama. I know it's like not base, like it's very misogynist. Just say you think it's hot, bro. Like, that's all. It's not really just how hot he was. Yo, look at this last selfie he sent me, actually, from a new faceless Grindr profile.
I'm gonna find it.
Look at this fucking picture. He's so hot. I had to go digging through the text to find it, and I knew I'd send it to my friend, but I fucking screamed when I saw what she had said. Like, Dalton started messaging me on Grindr again. She said, LMAO, why the fuck is he pretty? If he wasn't like a future murderer, I'd be lit as fuck for you. Shout out my girl for being an oracle, I guess. I said that to her. She's like, on God, I never miss.
And then I said,
neither did Chud, unfortunately. We cuddled on my couch and made out. I've struggled finding a good word for what happened next, because I think like simulated sex, it's too vague, and frauding is too specific. But at some point, I put it between his thighs. Not his ass, unfortunately. We were like kissing. He flexed his legs together, which it's funny from like Mr. I'm not a gay bottom. Like, I remembered this. Like, this came back to me. What we did was kind of more gay. Like, bruh, you just got your chud-ussy pounded. What else have you got to lose? Like, just flip over. Why am I losing my voice? I felt like Dalton wanted a trainee trad wife. We talked a lot about his job. I don't think he ever asked about mine. Several times after doing things for him, he called me a good girl. It was hot, like, don't get me wrong, but there was something unnerving about it. As corny as it sounds, I wondered what would happen if I was a bad girl. Chud was very intense. Ted Bundy stare and all that. He was bigger than me, and he would switch from being overly affectionate to annoyed and angry. Later down the road, he would neg me over text like, I miss your big forehead. And if I pushed back, he excused it.
You know I love you.
Which for one date, he said I love you like a few times. I said it back. I didn't want to get murdered. Maybe I did mean it. But like we both meant it a little bit. Because we're broken fucking people.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. And I don't even know if I'm going to be able to address all the items, but I will start with this and say that I am not surprised by this at all. Kind of same thing, like I said, you have all these closeted Republicans who are married in heteronormative marriages and, you know, doing all that stuff, but then having, you know, gay sets behind the scenes. This new alt-right movement with some of the more younger guys, these guys absolutely hate women, which then causes this this cognitive dissonance where like their brains and the way they process things are just kind of distorted, because you as a human, you still want to be, you know, in some type of relationship, and men still want to spread their seed, but then also ideology, you despise women, so then it causes this crack in the brain and they don't know kind of how to function and navigate through this life. I mean, look at Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes had went on the Piers Morgan show, and Piers Morgan had flat out asked him about his sexuality, because a lot of people have questioned Nick Fuentes's sexuality for the simple fact of he does seem like he's fighting something internally he's battling with. He's, you know, seems a little on the softer edge. He seems like his edges are, you know, a little curved, if you will. But Nick Fuentes on the Piers Morgan show had admitted that he was a virgin. He says that he is a virgin by choice. And he said that he is attracted to women, but he finds most of them to be fat, annoying, and hard to be around. Now, Nick Fuentes has that alt-right group, the Groypers, who allegedly have this subculture within the Groypers, however the hell you pronounce that stupid ass group, but they're rumored to have this subculture within that group, and it's these men who hate women so much that they groom other men to become femboys to then become their partners. And there's apparently this whole thing with like Call of Duty and operators and commanders and a whole bunch of shit. But yeah, they have gone so far right in hating women that they have come full circle around and started having homosexual sex, but they don't deem it homosexual because they deem these femboys to be more feminine than cis women or women in general. But also, I mean, we could take a look at Myron Gaines, who, by the way, real name is like Amro Fuddle or something. This is a whole fucking Middle Eastern man who is a white supremacist who loves Hitler, but he knows that he can't fit in that group with this Islamic sounding name, so he changed his name to something more American like Myron Gaines. And he has gone on record to say that vaginas are disgusting. And so, you know, give it some time. He's warming up to eventually get to that point of it coming out about his sexuality. It'll eventually come. But like I said, yeah, these alt-right spaces are so anti-women now that they're gravitating towards femboys. And then they're also going after a very specific type of transgender woman. And again, like I said, I don't like to talk in absolutes because I believe nothing is 100% this or 100% that. But there are spectrums and there are like different groups and different things within every culture, if you will. And within the transgender women community. So like much like everything in the world, there's a spectrum to femininity. You could be a dainty girl who, oh, I need help from a man to untwist the top of my jar. I just need a man by my side to do everything because I'm just so dainty. I'm such a dainty girl. And then you also have women who are, you know, fucking strong and can bench press twice their own weight and they can fix cars. And like when it comes to femininity, there is no bots that you could put it in. Like women exist across a wide spectrum. But conservatives and alt-right men like this stereotypical woman, and often there's the term trad wife, which is short for traditional wife, which is a woman who chooses to embrace an ultra traditional 1950s style gender role in her marriage, where she's the homemaker, she cooks from scratch, she cleans, she cares for children, and she defers to her husband as the primary decision maker and the financial provider. This is also those conservative women that you see that they're like, oh, I wouldn't mind if they take away my right to vote because I think the man, whatever the man says, that's what I like to do. So those are the stereotypical type of women that conservatives and alt-right men like. They like the women who know their role, they shut their mouth, and they support the patriarchy. And with the rise of feminism over the years and women deciding where within that spectrum of femininity where they fit, those conservative alt-right men take that as a assault on the heteronormative norm. Like, you're not supposed to have ideas and beliefs and your own hobbies. You're just supposed to, your job, you came from my rib. Your job is to just serve me. That's how they view it. So there are a subculture within trans women who, again, with trans women, they transition at different ages. And much like, you know, all of us do when we're in various, you know, cultures, we're always trying to find where in the spectrum that we fit. And with trans women, a lot of times it's them trying to figure out, and again, I'm talking about a specific subculture, they're trying to find where they fit in the space with their relationship with femininity. And this can manifest itself in them being heavy makeup users. This could result in them dressing extra feminine, or dressing, you know, extra slutty, or, you know, feeling that they have to be overtly submissive. Like, it's that trying to find where they fit in femininity, so going to a extreme level of it. And these alt-right men love that because they see that and they're like, see, that's how a woman is supposed to present themselves. This is how they're supposed to bow down to me, the superior male. And we heard that in the text messages that she read of Chud, where Chud was like, oh, all these women nowadays, they're manly. And so that's the reason why, you know, I like femme boys and trans women, because they actually know how to be women. And again, it's this ideology, this bot that they're trying to find women within, and then other women trying to gravitate towards where they align with femininity. Sometimes they end up falling in that bots, and that becomes this perfect marriage between the alt-right and with this non-heteronormative relationships that the alt-right men then don't view as homosexual relationships, if you will, because they're viewing it as these people are more aligned with what a woman is supposed to be. Hopefully that makes sense. But it's interesting. And then with that woman in particular, that white trans woman, she is a bit of a subsection of white trans women that I have noticed and encountered online, and even, you know, in the dating scene in Arizona, of these white trans women who identify with their whiteness more than they do with their gender identity. And I think that's dangerous because by definition, when you transition to become, a woman, or in the same thing with people who transition to become, trans men, um, you by definition becoming trans, you are a minority now, and you have essentially kind of given up a piece of your white privilege, your whiteness, if you will. Um, and the reason why, I kind of say that is because, like, minority by definition is every election cycle that comes up, minority rights are typically always on the ballots in some capacity. You have, being pro-choice, and you have all these civil rights things that just got kind of revoked under Donald Trump's presidency. And it's a bunch of laws and stuff that happen every single election cycle that, if you are part of the white heteronormative lifestyle, if you will, you don't ever have to worry about your rights being on the ballot, because your rights are what they're trying to, quote unquote, protect. It's all of us minorities. And so when you transition to being when you're white and you transition to be a trans person, you're now a minority, because now they're passing laws about what restroom that you could use, and they're passing laws if you and how you identify should be viewed as a mental illness. And if you and how you identify as a mental illness, they're trying to take your Second Amendment away, your right to bear arms. And I know several trans women who own guns to protect themselves because it's their Second Amendment. And trans women are often attacked and brutalized in a variety of ways just for being women and not fitting in this heteronormative lifestyle that American conservatism promotes. And so it's one of those things that, a lot of white trans women need to understand, is that you can no longer skate behind this privilege of voting doesn't matter and both sides are the same, when there is one particular side that is actively and aggressively trying to take all of your rights away. And I say all that to say, about the woman who was dating Chud, I kind of throw her in that box, because it's interesting that she had this relationship with Chud, and oh my God, he's so pretty, and we're just having all this fun and all that. But you didn't care about any of the racism that he had been doing online. Like he was making money off of being a racist piece of shit, like just wanting to piss off black people to the point of one getting aggressive with him so he can kill one. And you are perfectly fine with that. And again, an attack on one minority is an attack on all minorities, and all of us within the wide spectrum of minority living in America. We really need to understand that and continue to look out for one another, because at the end of the day, we are all we got. But yeah, I have a theory too about this. I don't know, the apolitical white person, and maybe, I don't know. I'm born and raised in Arizona, and I will say that Arizona is its own little special place, if you will, because I think Arizona is kind of unlike any other state in America. You have in Arizona, you have a state that has been conservative for a very long time. Hell, Arizona was one of the last states to recognize Martin Luther King Day as a holiday. So Arizona has been conservative at its core since its inception. But then, being someone from Arizona, as you go around and you meet people, you start to realize that the great majority of people in Arizona are not from Arizona. And that's the reason why, as of this last, couple elections, you start to see Arizona like turn blue. And then, like, there's, possibly some redistricting that they're trying to do to, get it back red. But like, we're at a place now where this long-standing conservative state is now starting to turn blue, and it's because all these outsiders, all these people from New York and from Washington and from California and all these other blue states who have moved out to Arizona, you're starting to see this disconnect. And so with that, I think we have a lot of people within Arizona who we just have experienced America and life completely different than others. And I have met a lot of apolitical white people who like, oh, I really don't like to get in politics, or oh, they just kind of have this weird relationship with politics. And all of the ones that I've had these deeper conversations with, they all tend to come from conservative families. And so you have these, younger white people who they grow up, they end up becoming friends with or end up dating people who are minorities, or they, become queer, or they get into queer relationships, but they grew up in a conservative family and they become apolitical because they're kind of stuck in this world where they, they're rocking with their minority friends, but their whole upbringing was in this conservative lifestyle. And, their family and the values that the family held together, it was always kind of like, who cared how they vote? Like, it didn't hurt them directly. And then they heard all these bad things about the left growing up. And so they just come to this point of really being kind of torn with what they grew up on and what they see day to day. And then instead of actually having that conversation, that internal dialogue with whiteness and where it plays in all of this, they tend to just kind of shrink back from all that and become apolitical and being, avoid all of those things. So I don't know. It's interesting. We shall see more about this Chud situation, and we shall see more about identity in America. And again, Pride Month is over, so stop being queer, y'all.
Every time I meet a gay dude, I'm like, ooh, more pussy for me. Be free. Take all the dick. Enjoy. I don't know. It's a numbers game, dog. Any straight dude who's weird about gay dudes, it makes no sense. I wish all you niggas was gay. I do. I wish every dude was gay. Every day I'd walk outside like, yes, it is me, ladies. Your only option.
4 letters.
1 word.
Dick.
I guess over to lighter news, which is never lighter when it comes to me because I look so deep into any and all things. But did y'all see this about PlayStation is getting ready to stop physical disc production in January 2028, and then new games will only be digital download only? Man, I think this is a problem. I think this is a problem, y'all. Now, over on PlayStation blog, they released this actually on July 1st, and basically, as PlayStation describes it, as consumer preferences in the broader entertainment industry comes to shift away from physical discs to digital, physical game disc production for all games releasing on PlayStation consoles will be discontinued starting January 2028. Following this date, new games will be available on PlayStation Store and at retailers in digital formats only. This transition has no impact on games that have already been released or will be releasing prior to the January 2028 in this format. They continue to say this is a natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adapt to consumer trends as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. This transition will enable us to align more closely with how most of our community prefers to access and play games today. We'll continue to prioritize our resources to drive innovation and how players can access games and provide choices as to where players prefer to purchase new games, whether it's at retailers or PlayStation Store. We remain committed to delivering a world-class gaming experience to our fans, and we thank you for your continued support. And I would like to say that it is hilarious because while this blog has 979 likes, this motherfucker has over 8,000 comments. People are not happy, and rightfully so. I'm not surprised to see a gaming system want to start to move in this direction, as this is what a lot of companies are starting to do. They want to move over to digital because having things being solely digital then essentially makes it brings your overhead down. If everything is digital, I don't have to mass produce these discs, and I don't have to pay these third party companies to manufacture these discs, and I don't have to pay these people to ship stuff out. Like, I could take all that overhead and turn it over to profit. And the one thing, if I could sit down in the room with PlayStation and, ask them one question, I have one question that I really want to know. If y'all are getting away from physical discs and everything is going to turn into digital media, which as a result is then going to bring the overhead drastically down, because it's a lot easier to, once a game is finished, to upload it on a server, something that y'all are already doing, and then you're removing all of these production costs. Are the price of games gonna go down? Oh no, the price of games are gonna continue to rise. Where's all that money going to? Is it going to your frontline employees? Oh no, your executives are just gonna cash bigger checks. Yeah. It's kind of what I thought. It's a fucking mess. This is a mess, and this is, again, everything goes back to capitalism, and I cannot stress that enough. Capitalism is a cancer to society, and capitalism's whole point is to minimize costs and maximize profit without giving a fuck about humanity. And what's going to end up happening, they're going to move over to just digital discs. And then as a result, digital downloads. And then as a result, what does that mean? That means that, hey, I bought this PlayStation and, I can only have so many games on this. So, now, I need to buy these storage chips. I need a PlayStation with even more storage so I can have more games on it. Oh, wait, they also have all this shit going on with computer chips, and computer chips costing so damn much that you got to take out car loans to be able to buy these, processing chips and all this stuff to be able to keep your computer up to code. So then as a result, dang, I can't afford to physically buy this additional memory. So then what am I going to have to do? You're going to have to do what they're going to end up doing with this GTA 6, with this whole cloud gaming thing that they are supposedly supposed to be doing. Now, and I'm actually trying to find the article. I cannot find the article, but there was a story about how GTA 6, when it comes out, GTA 6 is going to be like a massive, I know it's like over 100 gigs. If I remember correctly, it was like 200 to 300 gigs. That's how massive this game is going to be. It's going to basically take up damn near all the physical storage on your PlayStation. Then on top of that, to be able to process all the AI involved in the game to make all the individual NPCs actually have like thoughts and like personalities and traits and different things, you're going to need like an extra 100 gigabytes of like processing storage to be able to process all this AI stuff. And so it's going to be very taxing on these PlayStations. So then as a result, what PlayStation is going to introduce is this like cloud storage, where for a monthly subscription fee, you could then have access to these cloud servers. And I think that's the soft launch coming in, what is that, 2027, I think is when GTA 6 is going to come out. But that is going to be the soft launch to introduce the concept of having to pay for this monthly cloud service, which then the following year will get rid of physical discs, and you guys will already, because all of y'all are going to buy GTA 6. And all of y'all are going to then be used to this cloud storage's monthly subscription. So, hey, what's another $15-20 to get this additional storage to be able to download these games, because you guys don't have enough storage and you're not able to buy physical discs to then take that off of the storage of the console. And again, this is just all another way for companies to continue to make money off of you. It's crazy too, because there's also like stuff, if you look in PlayStation's terms and agreements, there's this coded language that basically says something to the extent of you having a digital copy of a game does not mean that you actually own the game, and then they have the right to kind of like delete the game if they want to. Now, they have only done this, I believe, once. I forgot the name of the game, but there was this one game that basically you could only play the game online through these servers. And at some point, the server ended up getting turned off. So then that kind of made the game null and void. And essentially, PlayStation then auto deleted that game, not only from their store, but it deleted the game from everybody's PlayStation that had that game, because they deemed it, not, hey, the servers don't work, so you can't play this game anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it off of your guys' consoles. And yes, that is a, once in a lifetime thing that they have done, but that does not mean that they're not going to continue to do that. And then that puts you now in a position where you you digitally buy stuff, but then you don't own those things. And if we don't own stuff that we bought, that we hold digitally, then also shouldn't piracy not be considered stealing? Like, none of this digital stuff we own. I don't know. I think they're running a scam on us. Speaking of scams,
everyone wants a man that goes to therapy until you actually have one, and he's right sometimes, and you, as the man hitting woman, have to admit to your faults. It's actually really messed up.
I recall during a conflict with one of the last women I dated, I called out an anxious pattern that she exhibited. I was like, you said and did this the last time, right? I just wanted to bring that to her awareness, not necessarily for us to stop seeing each other, but because in part she was ashamed of what I noticed. The last thing she texted me, and I'll never forget this: "You're right, I'll be better for someone else." George Carlin had this bit where he talked about the rich wanted us to be smart enough to pull the levers, turn the knobs, push the buttons, operate the machines, but not smart enough to critique the system. And that relates to how some, and let me emphasize some, women say they want an emotionally intelligent or available man, but what they really mean, probably unconsciously, is that they want them to be aware, intelligent, and communicative enough to support and validate them, and to help them regulate their emotions, but not be enough of those things to call them out on their problematic instances or patterns. I dated a couple women like that. I came across the dating profile of someone close to me, and in her dating prompt it said, "Something important I look for in a man is emotional intelligence." And I know from my deep history with her that she's one of these women. And I feel bad for any man caught in her orbit, because she's going through a lot right now. This is a gentle reminder to women, because that's who I date, that when you try to date more emotionally intelligent men who have done or are doing the work, their standards raise too. Some things that you may have said or done in the past that you got away with, you can't do that anymore, no matter how much of a baddie you think you are. I have cut out some beautiful women from my life because I didn't want any more drama after I had gained some peace. I'm crazy but I'm cute though attitude that I see in some women won't fly with many emotionally intelligent men. It may get you a date, it may get you in the door, but it's not sustainable. On one hand, many women want men to see them beyond their looks, to see them as a whole person, which is reasonable. Men, we shouldn't be objectifying women. But on the other hand, some of you women need to ask yourself sincerely, are you truly ready to be seen without being overly anxious or avoidant? After being routinely barraged by misogyny day in and day out, are you able to discern between that and genuine criticism from your man without being triggered and self-sabotage? Anyway, enough for me. What do you think? Peace.
Boy, oh boy, did that resonate with me. It's funny because as a 40-plus-year-old Black gynosexual ADHD divorced single dad, like I think it's a wrap for me in dating. I think I'm over it. I did actually recently delete. Not only did I uninstall, I would go through with dating apps, I would go through the whole, man, I'm off this for a little bit, I'm gonna go ahead and uninstall it. But I not only went ahead and uninstalled my dating apps, I deleted all of my profiles on all the dating apps. I think as of this moment, I'm kind of done chasing dating in my post-divorce lifestyle. It's a mess out here, y'all. Now, of course, this is never an attack on all women. As I say often, I don't believe in absolutes at all. But that video did resonate with me because I have kind of experienced that in the dating world, that there's a lot of women who say that they want an emotionally intelligent man, but a lot of times what they mean is they want a man that's emotionally intelligent enough to kind of help them regulate their emotions, but then also they kind of want that man to be stoic and not have emotions themselves. And that kind of is a difficult thing to look for, because so often a lot of criticisms that a lot of women will have towards men is that there's a lot of men who are stoic, if you will. They don't care about their emotions. They don't give a damn about their day. They just kind of move through life emotionless. And that is a thing that I think does go back to how a lot of men are raised. A lot of men are raised in the sense of boys don't cry. You suck it up. You just keep fighting. And you can't raise kids like that, to tell them to ignore their emotions and to swallow their emotions and then expect them when they become 18 to then be emotionally regulated people. That's not a realistic ask. So that is not the only reason, but I think that's one of the reasons why there are so many adult men who are emotionally unintelligent. It's because, during their entire upbringing, they were taught to swallow their emotions. And a lot of that comes to them getting older and being stoic and having, no actual relationship with their own internal emotions. And then as a result, they don't know how to have a relationship with, their partner's emotions. Now, I am someone who post-divorce, so I have always been, let me not say always been emotionally intelligent. I've always been sensitive. I've always been a man that carried emotions. And as I've gotten older, I now realize that that's, the reason why I'm so sensitive is not only because I'm a Gemini on the cusp of Cancer, but also because I'm autistic. And autistic people feel everything 2 to 10 times harder than normal fucking human beings. So I always, kind of had emotions and all that. And I may not always knew how to regulate the emotions, but I was always present with emotions. And so as a result, I could understand when I was in relationships with, women and them having emotions. I never looked at, man, these bitches always be having feelings and stuff. I never looked at it like that because I was someone who was aware that I had feelings and emotions. So, that is part of the reason why there's been a lot of times in a lot of relationships, it's like, oh, Trey is such a sweetheart. He he's not like the normal guys. But as I went to therapy post divorce, I then started to become a lot more emotionally intelligent as I continue to, discover myself and who I am and being comfortable with who I am. You start to have a greater relationship with your emotions. And I have noticed in dating over the past 3 years, I have encountered that on dating profiles where, women are like, oh, I want an emotionally intelligent man. And in my encounters with them and going on dates with them and then, asking them about their day and, when they're stressed out, hey, let it off your chest. Let me know what's going on. Let me help, walk you through this. Let me help talk you through this. And they appreciate that, oh man, here's this man that I could have these conversations with and, talk about my emotions. The challenge though seems to then be when you as the man start to display your own emotions. And I'm not saying, again, there's a lot of horrible fucking men out there. As I have always said, I sympathize with anyone who are attracted to men, because men are some of the most damaged creatures on earth. But in my time of dating, I've had a lot of instances of being emotionally intelligent with a woman and helping her through her day, helping her through her emotions. And then kind of like after we're done with the therapy session with her, eventually I have a bad day and I want to like vent to them, and then they shut down and they don't want to help me unpack their emotions. It's like, nigga, why the fuck you got emotions?
Bitch, you killed my dog.
Why was your dog in the street?
He wasn't in the street. He was on the sidewalk. You skated right over him.
Okay, well, if he on the sidewalk, why he ain't walk to the side?
Bitch, what? Why you ain't watch where you was skating?
Because this America.
Bitch, what the fuck do I have to do with anything we talking about?
I don't have to look out for dogs when I'm skating. Dogs need to look out for me.
Oh my God, why you just can't say you wrong, you sorry, and take some accountability?
Don't fall for that shit.
Shaquita Neck Snapper Edwards.
You goddamn right. And what you don't ever want to do is have a man lead you into a bullshit conversation about accountability. I know that's fucking right. I don't even know how to spell that shit. And don't ever fucking learn, sis. Okay, bitch, clock that. When he starts saying shit like it's your fault, tell him it's his fault. Because what the fuck he get the fault to give out in the first place?
Hold on,
if he
what?
start trying to argue his point, call him sassy. Because I mean, like, why is he even arguing with a woman? Ugh. If he come to you with evidence, he weird. And if he start making sense, tell him to lower his voice because he yelling at you. And most importantly, never let facts get in the way of your feelings. Because my feelings are the facts. You better know that shit, twin.
Hey, she killed my dog, though.
You sound like a bitch.
Desperate emergency force.
So yeah, it's just it's difficult. I can't seem to kind of figure it out. And it's also the thing too, again, as I continue to learn and understand myself, and once I, got diagnosed ADHD, that just kind of made a whole bunch of things make a lot more sense. So like that's part of the reason why like I was never the type of dude that could go up to a chick at a bar or somewhere in public and just like pull her number. I was never the type of dude who could do that. And, a lot of times, people are like, oh, well, that comes with confidence. And that's not the issue in my case. I'm a very confident person. If you sit down and have a conversation with me, you will understand that I'm very confident about myself and in believing how attractive and intelligent and how incredible of a person that I am. But it's more so with the social interaction is very kind of difficult to me. And especially being autistic, that means I can't read nuance very well. And when it comes to picking up women and dating and flirting and all that, there's a lot of nuance involved. And very often I can't tell the difference between when a woman is being nice and when a woman is flirting. And that unfortunately turns into the case where sometimes, I'll, be talking back and forth, and then it's like, I think she's digging me. And then I'll try to, kind of take it a step further, and then they step back like, oh shit, like, oh, this nigga trying to holler. And it's like, oh shit, I thought she was trying to holler. So I'm very big on needing women to be more direct. And it's actually funny too, because just diving into the world of, just being on the dating scene and being single, there was this, before I deleted all of my dating apps, there was this one chick that I had saw on this one app, and she was a baddie. I was like, oh shit, she bad. I wanted to holla, but then I had also made up my mind earlier, that week, that I was going to delete all of my dating profiles before the week was over. But I saw in her profile, it showed her Instagram. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add her on Instagram. So I added her on Instagram before I deleted my profiles, and then I've been following her for a while. And she posts stuff, and I like stuff, and then she'll post stories, and I'll hit the like on the story, or something be funny, I'll hit a like or whatnot. And then she had posted something recently about fighter jets, and there was this story about fighter jets, and it triggered this childhood memory of mine, because when I was younger, for whatever reason, I just all of a sudden became very fascinated with fighter jets. And I would build these model airplanes, and that was my thing for like a couple of years. I was building these model airplanes. That's actually where I have this scar. Y'all can't really see it on the camera, but I have this scar on my left hand between my thumb and my pointer finger, and it was from the knife that you use when you had to cut the pieces out of the thing will come in a square and have all the pieces, and then you have to cut the pieces out, and then you put them together and all that. But I have a scar from when I cut myself with the knife, so I always remember my fighter jet days from there. But I say all that to say that, yeah, I completely forgot about that childhood memory, and I saw their post about fighter jets and was like, oh shit, that unlocked the childhood memory. And then me just being I'm a very, I don't know, friendly person, and so I had commented on the post, and then she responded, and then she had said that she used to kind of do the same, build fighter jets, the little model airplanes when she was younger. And then we started having a conversation. And then the same thing, as I have said, I had decided that I was done dating, and so I was like, she's been friendly, but like, I don't want to read too much into this, and then I don't want to be overtly too thirsty and just keep keeping the conversation going when the conversation, I don't understand the nuance when the conversation is supposed to stop. And so I forgot what she had said, but I had just liked it. I didn't, force myself to say something back. And then she, out of the blue, another time had asked me how tall I was. I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh shit, she wanna know how tall I am? Oh shit, she feeling her brother, like, oh shit, son, oh shit, son. And so I told her my height, and then she had responded with her height, and then like a sad emoji behind it. And I was like, oh, what's up with the sad face? And then she was like, I was just worried that would be too tall for you. I'm like, oh shit, she's digging me. Fuck yeah, because I was digging her. That was the reason why I followed her on Instagram, but I didn't want to be Mr. Thirsty and all that. So then, we started talking, and we were chatting back and forth, and, I told her, height wasn't a problem. And, I told her how pretty I thought she was, and her style was dope and all this. And, we're chatting back and forth. And then suddenly the conversation goes dry, and she stops responding to stuff. And then this is the part where me, as autistic, I don't understand, like, when it gets to this nuance of that dance in the beginning when you first meet people, I don't know how to read the nuance. And so, like, when you stop responding, I take it as like, because initially I had asked her a question and she didn't respond to that question. And then I was like, oh shit, maybe that was too evasive of a question. So then I kind of moved on from that, because we had kind of talked about meeting up sometime, and so I had asked a question, but then I was like, she didn't respond. I was like, oh shit, maybe I was too evasive. And then the next day I had hit her up, and then I gave her my answer to that, and I just kind of like moved on from that. But then, like I said, the conversation started to get dry on her end, and then the autistic mind of myself, like, I don't know if I said something wrong. I don't know if I'm supposed to pursue harder. Like, I don't understand that part. And being fucking 43 at this point, I don't have the energy or the wherewithal to try to dissect it and figure out the dating game, the play, the dance. I can't do it. Like I'm in a place where I have again come to the realization that I'm autistic and I have a very hard time with nuance, and I am putting myself in a position where I need people to be more direct with me because I don't know how to do the dance. But yeah, I don't know. I just figured I'd share some personal stuff with y'all. At some point, I do want to do a podcast that's strictly based around my dating life since post-divorce. I think that would be a interesting concept to just kind of talk about all the people I've dated post-divorce. But I guess I haven't found the movie tie-in to be able to really build up that cinematic theme. So I don't know. Maybe one day.
These men think they can spit, but I'll teach him how to drool. He's nuttin' in my belly button. Call that shit a kiddie pool. Right? Right? Grandma, could you pass the potatoes, please?
Mom, I know you've been really excited about the idea of having grandkids someday, but I just thought you should know I decided to get an IED.
Don't you mean an IUD?
No.
Oh, sweetie.
Rest in peace, my granny, she got hit by a bazooka.
So I guess moving over to things I do understand, I do know how to resonate and dissect and all that. Hip hop and politics. Did y'all see this story about 50 Cent is reportedly set to perform at Donald Trump Jr.'s Executive Ranch Secret Club for America's 250th anniversary in Washington, D.C.? Yeah, 50 Cent is supposed to be one of the secret performers at this performance that actually supposedly happened on July 3rd. I'm waiting for more information, but again, this was like a secret show, so we'll see if any footage comes out about it. We'll see if we actually get any more information, but we got all of this info last week from the Daily Beast, and essentially what was reported is that 50 Cent was to be the latest hip-hop artist to perform at this executive branch, which joins the likes of previous performers such as Busta Rhymes, Ja Rule, and Timbaland. Now this performance is interesting because back in 2024, 50 was on The Breakfast Club and he claimed that he had turned down a $3 million offer to take stage for a Trump rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City. And 50 has said that, it's because he's afraid of politics. 50 on the show had said, I stay away from religion. I stay away from politics. That's the formula for confusion that has sent Kanye to Japan. He said something about both of those things, and now he can only go to Japan. I don't want to get in that. Now, part of it, I think 50 Cent is a fucking liar. Yeah, I did say that. 50 Cent is a capitalist, as are most rappers. A lot of the rappers, especially from my era of growing up, the rappers in the 90s and 2000s, as Outkast, once famously said, somehow the rap game remind me of the dope game. Somehow the dope game remind me of the rap game. It was in one of those orders. But you had this atypical rapper who grew up in the streets, was a drug dealer, and being a drug dealer means that you have no problem breaking the law and taking some type of product and funneling it through your community, no matter how it harms these people, to make money off of it. And it's, it's some nuance with that game. And then some of those guys then later on became rappers, and they used the knowledge of how they navigated through the dope game, and they used that within the music industry because, again, with music, it's similar to the dope game. You have a product, which is your music, and you figure out a way to kind of flood the block and then your record label is your plug who's helping you, connect with more people. And it's like, it's the same exact thing, but just instead of selling dope, you're selling raps. So if you are the type of person who had no problem selling poison to your community, as you become a rapper, as you become rich and famous, you have no problem aligning yourselves with bad people who are harming your community. You have no problem with it because, quite frankly, you don't give a fuck about nobody but yourself and making money. And it was interesting too because he had or Jay-Z, moving over to Jay-Z, who's someone else who I have, anybody who knows me knows Jay-Z's my favorite rapper of all time, but I have been vocal for the past couple years that Jay-Z not being openly critical of the Trump administration, and even so much so as hanging out with Ivanka Trump. There's pictures of him and Beyonce hanging out with Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, and you motherfuckers are you're being a black capitalist, you're straddling the line with that side versus, I'm pro-black, but then you still get money over there. And then Jay-Z also has the whole he was with after the whole Colin Kaepernick boycott of the NFL, then Jay-Z kind of slid in and, look, I managed the Super Bowl show. And yes, the Super Bowl shows have been fired since Jay-Z has taken over, but he's kind of made it cool for black people to watch football again when we were protesting it because how they blackballed that man, but you found a way to come in and capitalize off of that. And Jay-Z's in the midst of doing something similar to Target after Target had just fucked up their whole reputation last year by getting rid of DEI after that when Trump said it was illegal, and Target said, yep, we don't believe whatever you say, command-in-chief and officer, we believe the same thing. So Jay-Z's another one who's kind of in that boat, which I am also not surprised because Jay-Z on Volume 1, he has a song called Regrets. And on that song, he talks about during his years of selling crack cocaine in his community, he tells the story of selling dope to his mom. So him being someone who had no problem selling dope to his mom, I'm not surprised he has no problem selling his soul to the fucking KKK MAGA. But yeah, back over to 50. So yeah, 50 reportedly had, did the show. He had went on Instagram too after, the stuff started to pop off. He posted a picture of himself on a yacht, basically saying how unbothered and how much he didn't care what people thought. And again, I'm not surprised because you are a capitalist and you don't actually fucking stand for anything. You just stand for making money. And I have called this out many a times, and a lot of people who are part of that hustle lifestyle don't like to hear this, but I have said, if you're a person who you're all about, I wake up and get to the paper and I'm all about my grind, I'm all about making that money. All I hear when you say that is that there is a price that you will shake ass for. That's all I hear. If money is your motivating factor, that means that every single thing in action has a price. And for all you, stereotypical tough, hard niggas that, I get to the paper, I'm all about it, I don't give a fuck. A lot of these niggas is homophobic, and a lot of you niggas will suck a dick for the right price. Plain and simple. And naturally, shouts out to Ebro, who also talked about this whole situation on his show with Peter Rosenberg and Laura Stiles.
I don't like it. Let's just start there. I think it's whack.
And these other names, how about?
I think it's whack for all of y'all. Ja Rule, Busta, 50, Timberland. I think it's trash. I think it's whack. I think it's trash. And I know y'all don't need the money. So let's put that over there. The reason y'all are doing this is because you want the business relationships and you see these business opportunities for yourself. So
you don't think in some cases it's just grab a bag?
I don't think it's just grab a bag at a private.
But $500 for an easy private performance.
It's not five. No, it's $500 membership for the club.
We don't know what they got paid.
We don't know. I don't know what they're getting paid. But yeah, okay, maybe it is just a bag. But a lot of these dudes, even when you see, who did we see? Ivanka Trump and Hove and B, and they were sitting at the fundraiser table, right? Yeah. Like it's all just big money. It doesn't mean that 50's vote. First of all, I don't even know if 50's ever voted. So as much as he's chimed in on politics, do we know if he's actually ever cast a vote?
No, he's never endorsed anyone. And
right?
50 would not be progressive, by the way.
I'm not saying he would. I'm just
saying for people to be surprised, what ideals has he ever espoused that would make you think he's like on board with like great progressive ideology?
Exactly.
Nothing.
No
disrespect. It's just true.
So I have zero expectations, but I think it's whack. I think it's trash, especially at a time where the communities that all of y'all come from, you know, are dealing with the fallout of all of this BS. That's really the piece for me.
Well, and think about the people there celebrating it. Think about the kind of people that are there listening to you. You know, in 50's case, do basically straight up gangster rap. Think about like the kind of people that are enjoying it. Like that's literally that. What part of the game?
If
is
he
that
only
from?
does 21 questions and in the club,
okay, fine, cool. But once you start going,
if you do "What Up Gangsta" at Don Jr.'s club,
he's doing "What Up Gangsta."
You played yourself.
He's doing it. What up, thug? Bo! Katie Miller. Bo. That's what's going to be happening. Stephen Miller.
Well, that's the other trash part about this whole thing. You know the crowd sucks.
Oh.
Nah, you know the crowd is all pale pink, no rhythm. You know it is.
That's not nice. There are many whites who have enjoyed 50 properly.
No, I said that crowd.
I know, but that's why it's not even about their race. That's cheap.
I didn't bring up race. I brought up complexion.
And I won't even dive deep into Peter Rosenberg, you know, getting upset about the racial aspects of that because Peter is a Zionist, but that's a conversation for a whole nother podcast. I don't even have time today to dive into any of that. But I agree with Ebro that is what a lot of this is a lot of these things, because like none of these rappers need that money per se. You know, they're not, you know, starving to feed their children. So a lot of times doing these things is to then be in those doors to then have those relationships for all those back end deals. And that's what a lot of this comes down to. Is it's not about, oh, hey, I'm gonna do this performance and, you know, you gave me $500,000 or whatnot and, oh, thank you. Now, you know, my kids could, you know, have dinner this week. It's more so, hey, I do this for you, and then you find out about this thing, and you plug me with this person, and then I'll be able to do these different ventures. I mean, we saw a lot of the, you know, when we talk this big money talk, when you have these people who are not only millionaires, but they're multi-millionaires and getting into billionaire status, like, they're now in completely different rooms with different things, trying to take that money that they currently have and take it to a whole nother level. And then some of that, unfortunately, ends up being dealing with things that are not the most positive things within the world. I mean, we saw that with the Epstein files when the Epstein files came out, and then going through all the Epstein files, we fucking found out that like Steph Curry and Kevin Durant have dealings with like drone companies that are involved with Israeli situations. Like, and again, like, did Katie and Steph Curry wake up one day and like, oh man, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and get involved in this, you know, genocide that's happening over there? No, that's not necessarily what happened. But you become so rich and famous and you start working with people and start dealing with money, you just kind of become disconnected with the rest of the world. And especially if you're the type of person who, again, I kind of talked earlier about, you know, people being avoidant and kind of avoiding what's going on in the world, you know, hiding behind their whiteness when, you know, they're, you know, not necessarily able to benefit from whiteness anymore. It's kind of the same thing with a lot of these rich, famous black people who they don't necessarily identify with their blackness anymore. They identify with being rich and making money and wanting to make even more money, because as a rapper, you know, you're only hot for so long. As an athlete, you realize that, you know, your knees are only going to hold up for so long. So these people start to get in bed with very bad people, so then they could continue to make money elsewhere until the end of time. And it's just, again, it's always shitty to see people who will put their pocketbook over their own community. It would just it will never make sense to me. And lastly, the other thing that will never make sense to me is I didn't really see a big, like, that story kind of leaked online and people got to talking about it, and clearly, you know, enough people talked about it for 50 to then post on the yacht and, you know, say something back to these people. But I didn't see as much hate towards 50 as I saw when fucking Meg the Stallion had did the thing at the Kamala Harris rally. I remember when Meg the Stallion came out at Kamala Harris's rally, and there were a bunch of people who that was like the sole reason why they refused to vote for Kamala. Oh, look, you see where all this money is going to? This money is going to Meg the Stallion to shake her ass on stage. And it's like, no, like, how do you not know? Maybe she went up there for free. We have no idea if she made money or not. But again, it comes back to misogyny and fucking white supremacy in America. And quite frankly, y'all saw two black women who had the audacity to smile and have a good time. And that is truly what pisses y'all off. So that's the reason why y'all don't give a fuck about this 50 Cent thing. And furthermore, the reason why I know y'all don't give a fuck about this 50 Cent thing, because has anybody heard from what's her name? Chrisette Michele? Y'all remember Chrisette Michele? She was a up-and-coming R&B singer, had a angelic voice, and she was phenomenal. And even though, I mean, I'm not going to act like she was a Billboard charting artist that was just like killing the game, but during Trump's first run in his presidency, she had performed at one of his events, and ain't nobody heard from her since. Y'all packed her up and got her the fuck out of here. But then meanwhile, these black male rappers like 50 Cent and like Rick Ross and like Soulja Boy and like Nelly, and a lot of these motherfuckers are like, hey, that's the president of the United States. You got to respect him. And yeah, I'm going to perform for him. I'm going to get this money. And y'all ain't canceled none of the motherfuckers. Because again, it's your internalized misogyny. Message.
July is Disability Pride Month, and if you're not cracking a disabled person, why not? Don't you want to help me put some movement in the movement? If you agree that ableism is ruining society, show your commitment to the cause by ruining these walls.
I guess staying in the political realm, did y'all see this? And actually, I don't know what date this got recorded, but I do think this happened in the last week. Chris Cuomo had a sit down with Tucker Carlson, and there was one piece of their conversation that just kind of really stood out to me. Go ahead and check this out.
Emptying the prisons.
Russia has 100 million
140 million people. But
100 million more people.
But have you ever heard of us emptying out the prisons? I mean, why does he have to do that? He's in a desperate place.
Because he doesn't want his citizens to have to fight an unpopular war, because he's worried about his popularity, because he wants to stay in power. So it's easier to send convicts to the front. They have done this for centuries. I'm against it, but I'm just saying that's the fact. The point is...
You think Putin is concerned about his popularity in a place where he kills all of his opponents on a regular basis?
He's very concerned about his popularity.
Really? When he completely engineers the outcome of everything that happens?
Russia is a very complicated place with a lot of different competing power centers, including the FSB, which
And how has he stayed in power so long?
Because he's really good at politics, and he pays very close attention to what the public thinks. Very close. He's got the military, just like any country. First of all,
you know how lousy life is there for people, right? Well, and not just because of the economic sanctions right now. It just has been. I mean, have you been
there recently?
Recently, no.
I've been there.
We're not allowed in.
I've been there twice in the last year.
Why are you allowed in?
I don't know. I'm an American.
Friend of Putin. That's
whatever.
Friend of Putin.
Because I believe in seeing things and reaching my own conclusions.
Oh, me too. I'm not allowed in there as a journalist.
I'm sure you could call right now and they will let you in, and you should go.
Just wouldn't let me out. Wind up like Paul Whalen.
I think
and you wouldn't be arguing my case.
But look, here's the point. No, Russia.
That was the smoking gun to me. Why are you allowed there? You see Tucker Carlson kind of... It's because you're a fucking Russian asset. These motherfuckers are bought and paid for. And I really wish people could just pay attention to the patterns and put two and two together. I know over the past as we all know, MAGA was kind of a culmination of a whole bunch of different subcultures. I really did a super deep dive of that back on, I think that was episode 15, The Human Show. I talked about a whole bunch of stuff, how MAGA kind of came to be. And MAGA, had the first reign in the presidency, and things went as, things went, if you will. And then Trump didn't get reelected. Joe Biden, won, and then Joe Biden couldn't fix everything quickly enough. And so MAGA got back in office. And then this second time, for those who are paying attention, there's been a lot of very clear corruption that has been happening. And we are starting to see some people who were Trump supporters who went as far as voting for him 3 times. You're starting to see people kind of turn their back on him. There was a lot of people that got ramped up in the Epstein files, and yes, Epstein files, oh, go get all these Democrats, because all these Democrats are lying and they're raping these kids, and we got to stop them. And Trump was like, yeah, we're going to get day one. All this is coming. Day one, this is coming out. And then he got in office and said, hey, man, why don't y'all shut the fuck up about the Epstein file stuff? And then some, Trumpers started being like, hey, man, I think this guy's lying to us. And then there were others that, with the fucking gas prices, Trump said, hey, you get me back in, day one, prices are going down, and prices continue to go up. And then you finally had some people who were like, man, I can't fucking afford gas. And you had some people that started to turn on him. And so I say all that to say that there are some forward-thinking Republicans who see the writing is on the wall, that MAGA is starting to become splintered. And also, quite frankly, who knows how long Trump has on this earth? And to be frank, that's one of the things that we could say that, oh, yeah, let's say Trump died today and then J.D. Vance takes over and he's the new face of the MAGA movement. Chances are MAGA would dissolve. It wouldn't stay together, because as we see with cults, when the charismatic leader dies, typically the cult falls apart, because part of it's not just the ideology of the movement, it's that charismatic leader on top that brings them all together. We saw it with Jim Jones. We've seen it with plenty other cults, that person on top goes to jail or ends up dying, and the cult falls apart because they don't have that charismatic leader to keep them all together. And J.D. Vance is not that charismatic leader. He's not going to be able to keep that group together. So you have Tucker Carlson and you have Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are two people who they started saying stuff. They started to, disassociate themselves with Trump, and they started to, kind of say certain things. I even, some older Democrats that I know, I had a conversation with one, and they were like, oh, did you hear that Marjorie Taylor Greene? She was making some real good points. I was like, hey, slow down on that. They didn't just have a new new revelation of, oh my God, this is what's actually true. No, these people are not fucking stupid. They realize that MAGA is splintering, and before you let that whole movement die, kind of get out ahead of it and continue to be the charismatic leader. So when that dies, you can kind of try to bring these people over here. And so, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to be the face of whatever the next phase of MAGA is. Of course, Tucker Carlson wants to be the new face of whatever MAGA is. And that is what a lot of them, they're forward thinking, and they're kind of starting that to get ready for when MAGA dies, that they could be the next person to take it on. Because quite frankly, these people, they want power. I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them runs for president in 2028, and more than likely, if they don't win in 2028, they'll probably run again in 2032. They're getting ahead of what's going on, so then they could kind of keep that movement going and then bring all those fans over to them, and then now they have that power. That's what this all comes down to. And like I said, with Tucker Carlson and his ability to move in and out of Russia, it's because he's a Russian agent. And we found out that there was a ton of fucking Russian agents and that, you know, Russia was heavily involved in our politics. Because back in September of 2024, the U.S. Department of Justice had released this whole covert Russian governed sponsored foreign malign influence. Basically, there was this Tennessee-based company called Tenet Media, which was secretly funded with nearly $10 million by a Russian state media to basically distribute English language videos. And part of that was Tim Pool. And Tim Pool is a big right-wing person who promotes a lot of right-wing ideologies through his podcast and all that. And he was one of those people who, like, he had a very small, like, kind of following. And then almost overnight, the production value of his videos exploded. And then he started to, you know, his profile started to get boosted on social media. He started getting promoted and pushed into the algorithm. It was like, hey, you know, he kind of blew up overnight. And again, people who recognize patterns, you kind of got to understand nobody blows up like that overnight. And a lot of times if somebody blows up overnight like that, it's because they have like one viral moment and then they try to continue to chase that virality. Oh my God, I can't say that word. But then it ends up not quite working for them. And then they end up being that kind of like one-hit wonder. But for his production value to just go up 10 times out of nowhere and then just all this presence, it was like, yo, something's weird about that. How do you blow up so quick? And he blew up that quick because Russia has been involved in our politics going all the way back to Pizzagate and all that shit. And there are a lot of people who are being paid by Russia, just like there are a lot of people on the left who are getting paid by Israel. And our politics have been taken over by foreign people, by foreign entities. And, you know, I have said it 1,000 times before, and I will continue to say it, that we are in the midst of World War III, and World War III has been going on for quite some time. But this war is completely different because this war isn't a fight in the streets of people bombing each other and all that. No, this war is online and with the spread of misinformation by foreign entities to sway people. And like I mentioned last week about the algorithm being alive and people using this being to kind of manufacture all this low vibrational fear and guilt and anger and just, you know, kind of feeding something. And we as a society can now, you know, look at the same video and have completely different opinions about what we just saw. Like there are foreign entities involved in all of this to make this happen. So I would just, you know, kind of say, think about that the next time you see someone who was very pro MAGA for, you know, quite a long time. And all of a sudden they say things that align with your values. Like, did they change overnight, or are they chasing the money, the fame and the popularity? And do they truly have your best interests in mind? Because quite frankly, Tucker Carlson doesn't. He's a Russian agent, and if y'all vote him into office, he will be yet another Russian agent running the country like the motherfucker that we currently have, who is also a Russian agent.
Mr. President, what is it? Green Goblin is attacking New York City. What? He's causing mass destruction right now. Should we alert Spider-Man?
No! Send $50 billion to Israel right now!
So, moving on to other things I love dearly, and speaking about basketball, have y'all been keeping up with this story about former NBA star Malik Beasley, who is currently possibly, you know, going to jail over gambling and throwing away games? This shit is fucking insane. So yeah, Malik Beasley was basically being investigated as part of, and actually this even fucking starts before Malik Beasley. It goes back to a whole bunch of people. I want to say close to 36 people have been arrested in this whole gambling sweep of a bunch of former NBA players involved in various aspects of gambling. And there was Miami Heat star Terry Rozier, who was accused of conspiring with friends to help them win bets. You also had Chauncey Billups, who was accused of conspiring to Fitz high-stake poker games. And then now this whole situation with Malik Beasley that also involves ex-NBA player Ed Davis. Apparently, Ed Davis had loaned money to Beasley and then is accused as acting as his gatekeeper in this alleged scheme. Beasley is accused of fitzing or trying to fix his performance in at least 4 games while he played for the Milwaukee Bucks in 2024 by under or overperforming bookmakers' expectations. And essentially, you know, gambling back in the day used to be this team is going to win or that team is going to win. But then it's gotten deeper with these spreads of, oh man, I'm gonna go ahead and gamble, and this guy is gonna get, you know, 3.5 rebounds, and what's the over, what's the under? Or, oh, this person's gonna make 4 3-pointers, what's the under, what's the over? And then when you have these bets based off of specific situations within games, if you have these motherfuckers who are gambling, they can then perform a certain way to try to make sure that those lines actually end up hitting. And the hilarious part about this is that there are some people, as the internet does, you know, a lot of people have free time on their hands and they'll go back to review these games. And a couple of people went back to review a couple of the games in question, and this nigga 1000% was trying to throw these games. This shit is visually hilarious.
So episode 2 takes us to the first game named in Malik Beasley's federal indictment, and somehow this looks worse. January 26 against Cleveland, with the alleged wager on Beasley to finish under 3.5 rebounds. He grabs his first board just 45 seconds into the game, adds another soon after. With about 3 minutes left in the second quarter, he was already too scared to even look at the ball. All he could do was turn his back to the basket and try everything possible to make sure he did not grab another rebound. More than half the game remains, but one more rebound kills the under. Suddenly, every normal basketball instinct disappears. Cleveland pushes a 4-on-2, Milwaukee needs everyone sprinting back, and Beasley's guarding nobody. 4 Bucks are packed inside the paint trying to stop the possession. Where is Malik? He is not even in the damn frame. He is not protecting the rim, finding a shooter, or helping anyone. He is running from the basket like the rebound is radioactive. But the ugliest moment comes with 25 seconds left. Cleveland is down 9 and launches one final shot. The ball is still in the air and Beasley has turned his back and sprinted the other way. Remember, one more board makes the overhit, so instead of tracking the miss, he abandons the play and even bumps Max Strus while escaping. Strus looks at him like, what the hell are you doing? That is exactly what everyone should be asking.
Holy shit. There is no way he was not throwing that game. Like, anybody who watches basketball and has, you know, watched basketball for years, like, these are professional athletes, and like there are just some muscle memory things that you do and certain key fundamentals that you do while playing basketball. And he has those fundamentals. He shows those fundamentals game in and game out. And so it's weird that then all of a sudden, and these aren't, I could understand these were like playoff games or like game 7s or championship games. Sometimes the lights are so bright that you kind of, your muscle memory goes away and you start to forget some stuff. But these are regular fucking games that he just all of a sudden forgot all of his basketball principles. Fucking insane. Here's the other one too.
So let's watch Malik Beasley throw his NBA career away. All right, so if you live under a rock, Malik Beasley got indicted today. So the indictment mentions 4 games, but I want to circle this one against the Clippers over 3.5 rebounds. This shit was fucking insane. So Beasley gets his 3rd rebound with 1 minute left in the 3rd quarter. You know it's bad when you're boxing out. Look at this shit! He's boxing out Giannis for the rebound. And the little fella, well, he's not gonna guard anybody. The only thing on his mind is grabbing a rebound. Who cares that it's a 2-point game with 7 minutes left? This guy has no interest, 0 interest in playing defense. All he wants is the rebound. So now we're under a minute. And Beasley still needs that rebound. And he's doing everything he can to get that rebound. Whether that means not guarding James Harden, whether that means running into Harden. Look at him here. He wants that board, man. He just can't get it. So now we're down to 24 seconds. Beasley is going to pass this shot up. Pat Connaughton is going to shoot a three. Beasley from 40 feet out is going to crash the boards. So the Clippers are going to advance the ball. They're going to shoot a three here. 14 seconds left, up by 7. And Malik Beasley is going to fly out of the coal mines to get this rebound. And then look at his reaction when this ball goes in. He's like, fuck, man. And then Dame is going to be like, hello? The game is still going on, man. Wake the fuck up. It's not my fault. You're going to prison. And then we fast forward. The game is over. There are 8 seconds left. And Malik Beasley is going to get the biggest legacy rebound of his life. And he's going to cash his rebound over with 0.3 seconds left.
Holy shit. And I think those two clips are very important to kind of look at together, because you have one game where he needed the under and his basketball IQ completely vanished and he's sprinting away from the boards. He's leaking out in transition. He wants nothing to do with the rebounds. And then the very next clip, he needs the over, and this motherfucker is sprinting from 40 feet away to crash the board. He's boxing out his own teammates like, nigga, I need that rebound. This nigga is going to jail. Literally, if I was on that fucking trial, I would be fucking Uncle Ruckus.
We will now go off and deliberate on. Get out there! That nigga is get out there! Sir, settle down. You have to go deliberate. I don't need to deliberate. Hang that nigga now. I got the rope right here.
Holy shit. But yeah, according to, so this is from Yahoo Sports. So Malik Beasley and retired NBA forward Ed Davis are facing multiple federal gambling charges after federal authorities linked them to alleged point shaving and prop betting manipulation scheme. Apparently, the two of them and 4 other co-defendants are accused of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, bribery in sporting contests, conspiracy to commit honest services wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. And this is all according to a Justice Department press release. They also, part of the evidence attained was these text messages exchanged between Beasley and Davis. The two NBA players were teammates for back in the 2020-2021 season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And in the leak text messages, Beasley agreed to fix prop bets with Davis in 2023-2024 when the former played for the Milwaukee Bucks, as you saw in those two clips. And in their alleged arrangement, Beasley would inform Davis whether he expected to go over or under in some of those props. Davis, in turn, would then allegedly pass on the insider information to the other co-conspirators identified in the indictment as William Brown, Robert Gorodeski, Ernesto Pancia, and current NBA player Paulo Zamorano. The messages between the two accused NBA players occurred during the operation's infancy, and it appears that Davis was recruiting Beasley and redirecting them to a popular visual messaging and social media app. Davis asked Beasley, "You got Snapchat?" Beasley replies, "No, not really. Why?" After Malik inquired whether they could talk here, which likely meant the SMS service, Davis then texts, "Better to talk on there. We can make some good money." So yeah, looks like these niggas were all involved in this, and like there were more stories about apparently Malik Beasley like owed Ed Davis money, and then this is part of the way that he kind of got looped into it was then, you know, hey, I'm gonna tell you the over the under, then y'all bet on this, and then y'all can get this, you know, inside money, and that's how I can pay off these debts. And it's amazing because like I think this is going to probably be one of those scandals under Adam Silver that this is going to define his legacy of like how we view him going forward. Because in America, gambling is a mess. Like, gambling by all accounts can be addictive, and you could put gambling up there with people who have alcohol problems and people who have drug problems. There are people who gamble and have gambling problems. I remember dating this woman when I was in my 20s, and her parents were addicted to going to the casino. And as you guys know, the casino is designed in a way where you go inside the casino, there's no clocks anywhere, so you don't know what time it is. There's no windows, so you can't, see what time of day it is. And then you have all these machines that have all these lights and colors and sirens and all this stuff like video games, and all of this shit is to produce dopamine in your brain and get you stuck in there. And she would have her parents would like get off work at like 5, 6 o'clock, and they would go to the casino, and then they would stay at the casino till 6 a.m. like the next fucking morning, just gambling all night, gambling. Like, this is an addiction, and gambling is an addiction that, again, needs to be held up there with any other substance abuse. And so with that, I think that, and then, I say all that to say that the NBA then has all these partnerships with DraftKings and all that. And you can't, you can't get through a podcast or, an NBA podcast or an NBA commercial or, watching a game without seeing DraftKings and Prize Picks and all these different gambling things. And it's part of American culture now. And so as a result, you are going to get some of these basketball players who are going to get involved in this. And more than likely, these are the players who are addicted to gambling. There's been a ton more videos. There was another video recently of some shit with Chris Paul and I think it was Gary Payton III during a Warriors game. And they were a little too excited about some of the action that was going on and if this person was going to get a rebound or not. And so I think that this isn't going to stop. I think we're going to get a ton more basketball players over time that get indicted in this, and it's going to be up to Adam Silver. Do you clean this shit up, and then do you separate yourself from all of this gambling shit and all these gambling ads, or do you keep skirting around what the actual issue is and you continue to collect this gambling money? Are you going to continue to take this ad money, this ad revenue from these gambling companies, or do you clean up your sport? And I think this is going to be one of the major turning points in his career, and we'll see, how he does as a commissioner. But this is a mess, and again, I blame everything on capitalism because everything is about profit over human decency. And if Adam Silver does the incorrect thing, it's because of that, because he's worried about the lines, and he's worrying about how much money that they're making, and he's not giving a fuck about how this is impacting the game that he commissions and that he claims to love. Now, as I said, I absolutely love basketball, and quite frankly, I'm a massive WNBA fan, and I'm starting to actually ask myself the question if I'm a bigger WNBA fan than I am an NBA fan, because when it comes to the NBA, I do have my podcast I listen to, and that's how during the regular season I kind of keep up with what's going on. And of course, on social media, I see certain things. So like I'm typically aware of what's going on during the NBA regular season, but I don't really watch too many games unless, it's one of the big games, maybe, like Christmas Day or something like that. But for the most part, yeah, I don't really follow the NBA or watch games, I should say, until the playoffs. And then I'll get locked in with the playoffs. And then especially when we get to the conference finals and the NBA finals, then I'll actually watch every single game and, see how, the season ends. But when it comes to the WNBA, not only do I subscribe to League Pass every year and have for several years now, I also find myself I tend to get off work between like 9, 10 o'clock at night. And I'm the type of person who, when I get home and turn on my TV, I go directly to YouTube. And I find myself during the WNBA regular season, if I can't watch games on League Pass, when I get home and hop on YouTube, the first thing I do is I go to the WNBA highlights on YouTube, and I watch the highlights to see how the women are doing, because I absolutely fucking love the WNBA and watching the game. And I say all that to say that something very big happened recently in the WNBA, and we had a game between the Phoenix Mercury and the Indiana Fever, and it was the second time these two teams played during the same week. And the reason why this was a big deal was, let's step back a little and go back to last WNBA season. So last season, the Indiana Fever felt that they were title contenders, and they needed a vet to help get them to that finish line. And they did get Sophia Cunningham, who used to play for the Phoenix Mercury. They got her on the team, and I don't want to hate, but Sophia Cunningham, I think her career averages are like 8 to 9 points per game, and a couple of rebounds, maybe 1 assist, maybe a half assist or whatnot. She's not really a needle mover. She's another body on your team that could, help you, but she's not really a needle mover. But they picked up DeWanna Bonner going into last season, and DeWanna Bonner, I guess you could kind of compare her to kind of like a Kevin Durant. She's a very tall, long forward who could shoot from anywhere. She's a 3-level scorer. She could shoot deep threes and all that. But I compare her to Kevin Durant in the sense that she's in the later years of her career. Because I believe she's I want to say this is like year 17. I could be incorrect. My apologies if so, but she's been in the league for quite some time. So she's this high profile scorer, this elite veteran, but she is in the later part of her career, and she got signed by the Indiana Fever. The season started. She made it a few games with them, and then all of a sudden disappeared from the team. She was no longer seen on the bench. There was a lot of questions about, is she injured? What exactly is going on? It was a lot of confusion. And then she, out of the blue, got traded to the Phoenix Mercury. And the reason why that was such a big story, her getting traded to the Phoenix Mercury, is Alyssa Thomas is our point center for the Phoenix Mercury. And Alyssa Thomas is DeWanna Bonner's wife. They are married, and they've been married for quite some time now. Now, the WNBA season last year ended with the Phoenix Mercury making it to the WNBA finals against the Las Vegas Aces, and they famously lost as Asia Wilson had hit a game-winning shot over the married couple that will live in infamy. But Las Vegas Aces won. That's that. And then fast forward, we come to this season. So this season, the Phoenix Mercury, we lost Satu Sabli, who went over to play for the New York Liberty for whatever reason, or just our chemistry had fallen apart. The Mercury are not doing that well this season, and the Indiana Fever continues to be the team with Caitlin Clark, who is the great white hope of America, who unfortunately got famous in college. And one of the things I always like to call out, and you could actually look at the Google hits and the searches and all that, Caitlin Clark was popular in college basketball, and she was this no-nonsense, trash-talking, three-point shooter, and a lot of people liked her. A lot of people were fans of her, but she wasn't like this household name, if you will. And then that game against Angel Reese happened, where Angel Reese did the "you can't see me," and white supremacists got very upset that black woman had the audacity to do that. And then white supremacists began to rally behind Caitlin Clark, and her fame blew up to levels unimaginable after that. And to give a little bit more history for those who don't know, the whole "you can't see me" thing, what it is that Caitlin Clark was doing that "you can't see me" to a bunch of people. And then Caitlin Clark had a game against, I believe it was the Gamecocks, where it was a close game in March Madness, where Raven Johnson, who currently plays for the Indiana Fever, Raven Johnson was open at the 3-point line, and Caitlin Clark waved her off like, "Bitch, I ain't gonna fucking guard you because you can't shoot." And Raven Johnson passed the ball because she didn't believe in her 3-point shot. And Raven went on to say how that was a very tough thing on her psyche, and she really had to kind of build over that, because that became a viral thing of her waving her off and Raven being afraid to shoot the shot. That became a whole thing. But Angel Reese and Raven Johnson were former teammates. And so when LSU with Angel Reese had played Iowa with Caitlin Clark, and LSU proceeded to put belt to ass on that team, Angel Reese got her get back for her friend Raven, and that's why she did the "You Can't See Me," which was, again, something that Caitlin had been doing for the past couple of years, and that white people absolutely loved. But then when it was done to her, it was the audacity of that black woman doing it to her. So yeah, I say all that, to kind of set the background. So then Caitlin comes into the WNBA. Unfortunately, all these white supremacists follow her. And this is right around the time when the WNBA is also starting to blow up, getting a lot more attention. New TV deals are getting ready to come. More money is coming in, and Cathy Engelbert, or wherever her name is, the commissioner, she sees all this attention with Caitlin Clark, and she sees all this money that Caitlin is helping to bring in. And so she kind of, she rides those coattails, and she, kind of rides on that. And it has unfortunately turned following the WNBA online as very difficult, because there is a lot of toxicity within it. And there's a lot of white supremacy and racial shit that happens on the WNBA social media. Now, to get back to the point at hand, you have this during this week, the Indiana Fever and the Phoenix Mercury play against each other on Monday. And this, if I'm not mistaken, was the first time the Mercury had played the Fever since all that happened with DeWanna Bonner and the Fever last year. Don't quote me on that, but I think this was the first time they had matched up. And as I had said, the Phoenix Mercury are, also not doing that well this season, so there's a lot of frustrations on that end, and there's already the tension between these two teams. And they play on that Monday, and it becomes a very intense game. There's a play where I think like Caitlin Clark talks shit. She hits a three. Then DeWanna Bonner comes on the other end, hits a three. Then Caitlin Clark comes back and hits a three. Like they're going back and forth or whatever, trying to one up each other. And then on a play, Phoenix gets the ball. They're in transition. DeWanna Bonner is looking for position. She's looking to get the ball. Caitlin Clark is guarding her. They get all kind of wrapped up, and DeWanna Bonner kind of shoves her off. And that turns into a whole thing. And over the course of the game, something like 6 technicals get called. It gets spicy. The fucking Sophia pointing meme comes, which a lot of people are using that, and fuck that meme, because there's a lot of white supremacy coding behind that. But yeah, it turned into a very spicy game, and it was a game that I had missed because I was at work that day. But again, like I said, I get home, I turn on YouTube and look up highlights. I was like, oh shit, what happened? And I watch all the clips. I was like, oh dang, yeah, because there's history between these two teams. And then I'm like, oh man, I need to see the Nets time these two are going to play, because I need to make sure I don't miss the Nets game. The Nets game happened to be that same week on Wednesday, which happened to be my day off. So I'm like, oh shit, I am not going to miss this game. And so I sit there and I watch the game. It's a pretty good game, but unfortunately the game will forever be kind of scarred in history, if you will, because this is the game where Alyssa Thomas, during a loose ball, fist comes in contact with Caitlin Clark's throat, and it turns into this huge ordeal. Now, of course, when I explain it in that fashion of Alyssa Thomas's fist came in contact with Caitlin Clark's throat, it sounds horrible. But again, mind you, I watched this game in the real time, and watching it in the real time, you don't notice anything different or odd. It just looked like a regular loose ball play.
It's gone by here in the second quarter, a 41-38 Fever advantage. Clark, defended by Held, lost her footing. Kicked out to Boston. 3 doesn't go. Phoenix.
So, as you see, it was a regular play. You hear the announcers talking. Nobody says anything about that play. Nobody on the court necessarily, does anything. And after, you could see, like, after Alyssa Thomas fell on top of Caitlin and, like, she got up, she's still trying to get to the ball. And then, like, their feet are kind of tangled up. And then Alyssa Thomas is looking down because she's trying to step over. She's trying not to step on her. She's trying to get back into the play. And then Caitlin Clark does stay on the ground and look over at the ref. But that's also kind of not any different because Caitlin Clark is very well known to be one of the biggest complainers with the refs. It's like all game, every game, she's complaining to the refs about everything. So, like, nothing out of the ordinary stood out during that whole play.
It's gone by here in the second quarter, a 41-38 Fever advantage. Clark, defended by Held, lost her footing. Kick out to Boston, 3 doesn't go. Phoenix.
And it wasn't until later on in the broadcast that they decided to zoom in on that play and play it in slow motion. That then,
I mean, Caitlin to the ground, and ooh, that's a hand to the neck, and then Alyssa Thomas.
Boy, oh boy, when you see it zoomed in and slowed down and with everything kind of hyper-focused on Caitlin Clark's facial expressions, boy, oh boy, does that whole play look completely different. It looks like Alyssa Thomas pounced on her, punched her in the throat, and then Caitlin Clark was just, oh my God, I'm being brutally attacked by this black woman. Oh, the humanity. And I get, if you didn't watch the fucking game and you only saw that clip online and you already have this in your head about how all these black women are just so angry and they just hate Caitlin Clark, I understand why you would get upset. But again, I am talking to you as someone who watched that game live. And as we saw in that original clip that I played, during the moment, it looked like a regular loose ball play. And quite frankly, I would really love to see more, if you want to dissect that, like, let's see more loose ball plays where you zoom in and you slow it down. I bet a bunch of loose ball plays, there's a lot of fouls missed because anybody who has grown up playing basketball and being around, a coaching environment, coaches tell you when the ball is loose, it's a 50-50 ball. And at that point, it has nothing to do with skill. It has everything to do with who wants that ball more. And coaches teach their players when there's a 50-50 ball, you get on the floor and you get to that fucking ball and you be the first person to get to that ball. And that is natural basketball stuff. And so, of course, as two people are on the ground trying to get to a ball, I'm fairly certain a bunch of fouls get missed. And I'm fairly certain if you were to take all those loose ball things and slow them down, you would see some stuff that looks horrible in slow motion. And then, unfortunately, we live in a world now where social media is a place for engagement farming and riling up emotions to get engagement and get people talking. And white supremacists absolutely love AI because all these things that they claim are happening in the world, now they could type in a prompt to make these things actually happen. So then they could play it for you. And people who are not, internet savvy enough then see these AI videos and don't realize that it is AI. And then it continues to amplify this narrative. And so first, it started with that clip being slowed down and circulating online, and you got people talking. And then you got people who then took AI to then make that video look even worse. They proceeded to then take that video, manipulate the video. And I saw a couple of different AI videos. One where Alyssa Thomas is on her neck a whole lot longer than what actually happened. And she's staring down and she's smiling. Ooh, being an angry black woman smiling with her fist on Caitlin's throat. And there was another one I saw where then some other generic black women, because again, if you actually watch the game and you actually look at these faces, these are not any of the actual Mercury players. These are all generic people. Because again, AI is not flawless, if you will. But there was another one where then they added, the talking to it, and Alyssa Thomas and some other generic black women are saying to Caitlin, yeah, white bitch, take this. And of course, now that's fueling into the racial animosity and this divide that we already have in this country. And this then exploded online. It got all over the place. And the very next day, the WNBA, who has their Stop the Hate program, then proceeded to look into it. And they then decided to suspend AT for a game for excessive contact to the throat, which, again, did not add to the situation. It added more fuel to the fire. So from there, you have all of this online outrage, and then you have the WNBA decide to suspend Alyssa Thomas. And then now the conversation kind of gets back to ESPN media. It gets back to the actual people who are actual lovers of the game and actually part of the game, who then start talking about it. And there was this segment in between games where Chini Agumake, and I apologize if I say your name incorrectly because I can't pronounce shit and I always mess up your name. But her and my girl Sydney Colson, shouts out to the Unsupervised podcast. Her and TP is a hilarious fucking podcast between those two women. But they were on a ESPN show, and they began talking about the situation, and they had some very good points, I believe.
To me, overall, officiating has been a universal issue this year. And that's not the goal of any league, but this is the reality. And when you think about the imperative to call more fouls, we're seeing the highest scoring season ever in WNBA history. That's largely because they're calling more fouls, right? Games are no longer 2 hours, they're 2.5 hours long. So you're seeing that there's an imperative to call more fouls, but there's still a lack of situational awareness or a lack of control of the game by the refs. You can call fouls, but is it dictating how one game is played from the other? Because you can see one game where one is super physical and one where people are dropping 50. There's been a lack of consistency, and this creates a problem in magnifier matchups. And this is a magnifier matchup when you look back at it. Alyssa Thomas, Caitlin Clark, both dominant players, but Alyssa plays on the edge. I know her. And Caitlin sometimes embellishes at times in certain instances. And so when you have a scrum, like you said, there needs to be a vigilance, but also this created a position where the league is now forced to be reactive. And instead of having a control of not just calling fouls, now the league is reacting and doing something that it rarely does on a non-call and instituting a suspension. And to me, that was unique. But I'll lastly say this, because that largely happened because of the optics. In game flow, if you're watching in game speed, I was watching in game speed, I didn't really notice too much because people hit the ground all the time. But then when narratives are created based off of a freeze frame, that can create a huge problem. And I do think that the league, yes, the league was reacting to the optics of that image.
Yeah, which is what Tibbetts was saying, right?
Yeah, like if you walk by me and I'm doing this, but then if you play it faster and you see I was actually doing this, to move my nose, it looked different in freeze frame.
But the bigger picture issue here is that, like, in that situation, if you're watching it in real time, both players who are known to make their issues known got up and kept going.
That was my
and so that's why I have a problem, because if you're looking at the reaction even to this day, it breaks my heart, because players, even in Alyssa Thomas's caliber, whether you think she did it intentionally or not, she's dealing with a heightened level of vitriol right now based off of what this situation created, and that doesn't sit well with me. If the league could really handle this better in real time and figuring out how we want more points, we want more fouls, but how do we keep an eye on these specific matchups so we can avoid the narratives getting out of our control? I hope that happens moving forward in the future.
I think she nailed it. Like, that's what this comes down to. There's a lot of inconsistency in how they are officiating these games. And we have seen, you have this situation where the WNBA is reactive in the situation to go back and, do the suspension and all that. But then in the same breath, we have seen instances, and actually even keeping it with Alyssa Thomas. Last season, it was either last season or the season before, I can't remember. It might have been Angel Reese's rookie season. But there was a game where Alyssa Thomas played against Angel Reese, and Angel Reese is going up for a rebound, and Alyssa Thomas does this like swipe. And how she does the swipe, her hand ends up connecting with Angel Reese's throat, and she kind of like throws her down to the ground. And Angel Reese, didn't run to social media to say, I'm being persecuted or anything like that. It turned into a flagrant foul, and, it's hard-fought basketball because the WNBA, hey, I know they're women, but it's a physical league For the people who actually watch it, it's a physical league. These women actually get to it. And then furthermore, it was very interesting because that same group of people who then turned this into a whole racial thing again, unfortunately saying that, you know, they're attacking these black women are attacking this white woman. I didn't see those same people complain last year when there was that game with the Indiana Fever and with the Connecticut Sun that got out of control. And Sophia Cunningham had got pissed off at JC because JC had got into it with CC earlier in the game. And then Sophia and JC were like on a fast break. JC was going up for a layup, and Sophia Cunningham grabbed her by the neck and threw her to the ground. And then when JC got in her face, Sophia was grabbing her by the neck. And people were like, yay, yay, Sophia, she's the enforcer. And y'all love the physicality when your people do it, but then when the physicality is done against you, then you start crying and complaining. And that is the challenge, and that's the bullshit that people are calling out. Like, you can't be like, hey, I like when my team is physical, but don't get physical with us. Either you like the physicality or you don't like the physicality, and let's stop, you know, making the scenarios different depending on who that player is. So we go from all the stuff happening in the game to then the narrative that's portrayed online, and then you have all the AI stuff that then kind of ramps it up even more, all the racism and vitriol, you know, kind of spewed out there. Then you start to get some of the ESPN reactions from some of the media people and some of the women who used to be in the WNBA who actually know these people and who actually, like I said, follow the game in real time. And then from there, we start to hear from the people who were actually involved in the incidents, and you start to hear more of their take on what's going on. And first person to speak out on all this was AT herself.
I'm crazy. You know, playing the game, being suspended, just the whole narrative that's being painted out there. It's unfortunate that it's come to this over basketball. A lot of us, myself included, didn't even know the play took place until after, you know, the game, and you know, now we're being painted as thugs, and there's death threats out on us. So it's really unacceptable. It's something that needs to change in this league, and I'm just really sick and tired of it.
It is insane, again, that you could be a WNBA basketball player who has been playing this game for over a decade, and then you, unfortunately, are someone who fouls Caitlyn, touches Caitlyn in a way that the white supremacists are not happy about. And then all of a sudden they start calling you a thug. They start calling you all type of racial slurs. And now your social media is filled with a bunch of death threats. This is a game of basketball. It shouldn't get that deep, but unfortunately it is that deep for the racists. And then when you call out the racism that's going on, they're like, oh, no, you guys should be grateful that Caitlyn is in the game. All these niggerettes, you know, weren't ever able to make money until this white woman came and saved the day. And again, the WNBA was fine before Caitlyn, and the WNBA will continue to be fine after Caitlyn. And she's not the only player who's helping to elevate this game to another level. But yeah. Then after the AT press conference, we got to hear from Stephanie White, who is the coach of the Indiana Fever. And Stephanie White is also married to a black woman. I think that's important for people to understand. So let's hear what Stephanie White had to say about the situation.
Yeah, I know. I got AB's sneakers on today. Before we start with questions, you know, I just want to address, you know, what's going on with AT. You know, I think first and foremost, it's absolutely unacceptable. You know, I think as a league, as a whole, there's been so much more toxicity, racism, homophobia, straight out like nonsense, hate nonsense. And it is absolutely unacceptable. Most of this coming from the online community. Most of this, you know, in my heart of hearts, I believe, not coming from WNBA fans. Indiana Fever fans. You know, I believe that this is people who are using our league, using our players to further divisive agendas. It's not acceptable. Yes, we have to continue to protect our players. We've got to continue to support our players in our league. we get to play a basketball game. And AT was exactly right. Like, we get to play a basketball game. And yes, that's going to come with criticism. Yes, that's going to come with fans and the love-hate relationship that they have with players and teams. That is going to come. But it's not hard to not be a jerk. And if you are one of these people that are online doing this, do not call yourself a WNBA fan. Our league is about inclusiveness. Our league is about competition. Our league is about elevating women, elevating marginalized communities, including and being inclusive of all different walks of life. That is what our league has always been about from day one. That is what our league will continue to be about. And we will continue to compete at a high level, hold ourselves to a higher standard, continue to be on the forefront of social norms, and we will continue to support one another collectively as a league. Players, coaches, staff, support staff, everyone. We're about elevating. We are not about demeaning, demanding. We are not about continuing this narrative. And it's just absolutely unacceptable.
Now, I will say that Stephanie White is in a tough situation because, again, she is currently the coach for the Indiana Fever, and that's part of living and working in corporate America. Even if you don't agree with something, you kind of still have to toe the line. And I think that's the reason why Stephanie White addressed the situation while also kind of talking around the situation. You see, she didn't specifically call out. She just used, generic words like, oh, hate. She didn't specifically say the racism that's involved in all of this. She kind of stepped around that. The other thing she stepped around was she was like, I don't think it's necessarily WNBA fans. It's not necessarily the Indiana Fever fans. It's people online. Yeah, it's people online, but it's also the Indiana Fever fans. We saw instances of Angel Reese, the first time that she was in Indiana playing, the first time, the two of them matched up in the WNBA, and the Barstools guy was in the front row yelling shit, and there was even reports of monkey noises being made while fucking Angel Reese was at the free throw line shooting free throws. You had Marina Mabry's girlfriend, what's her name, Sanaya Rivers, who in a game against the Indiana Fever was getting ready to pass the ball in, and somebody said something racist to her, and Sanaya pulled the ref to the side and refused to continue with the game until they removed that person from the arena. This is happening in the Indiana Fever arenas. So we can't just say, oh, it's just the people online. No, it's happening in your building too, and it's Indiana Fever fans. It's racism. Let's stop talking around shit. Let's stop, using all these code words, and let's call it what it is, because quite frankly, I think this is the reason why a lot of this shit is bubbling up in the way that it is, because we're talking around shit and we're not actually addressing the elephant in the room. Now, the conversation continued, and the Nets player that kind of got involved into this whole situation is sports analyst Emmanuel Acho, who he is someone who got involved in the sports analyst stuff, and he is someone who has been on my radar of someone who also kind of toes the line. He is one of the people who he is always going to try to kind of make sure to, take the heat away. It's not racism. I think we're looking too deep into this. It's not a black or white thing. Like, he's one of those who is not as far as Stephen A. Smith, but he's someone who probably sees that Stephen A. Smith radar and is like, hey man, if I toe that line, for white supremacy, I could get them checks like Stephen A. Smith. And so he has always been someone who I kind of take some of the stuff that he says, especially with certain topics, with a grain of salt. But it was interesting because he had some stuff online to say about this, and then he started to experience some of what's going on around this whole situation, and he talked about it on this show.
I've been called the N-word more times in the last 24 hours than I have in the last 24 years in defense of Caitlin Clark. And this is why I suggested that Caitlin Clark has been more detrimental than she has been an additive. Not because of Caitlin Clark's ability, because those that have come to the defense of Caitlin Clark, and I use that word loosely, are spewing hatred, are spewing misogyny, are spewing racism, and that is detrimental to the W, it's detrimental to society, and it's detrimental to humanity. Focusing on Alyssa Thomas, she made a basketball play. A play that was so common that it wasn't even seen as a foul. Alyssa Thomas didn't react, Caitlin Clark didn't react. Because it was a relatively common play, then based upon backlash, a play goes from not even being seen as a foul to being a one-game suspension, all in defense of Caitlin Clark. So as I look at it, the individuals that are trying to act as though they're defending Caitlin Clark, they're not. They're just finding ways to unleash their own innate hatred, finding ways to unleash their own innate misogyny, finding ways to unleash their own innate racism, finding ways to unleash their own innate sexism, and they're doing so veiled as Caitlin Clark's fans, who don't even truly support the W, nor do they support Caitlin Clark.
Man, it's only as if we have been saying this nonstop for the past 3 years, and people on that side have been telling us to shut the fuck up and stop bringing up race and all that, while meanwhile the whole fucking clan is following Caitlin Clark and pushing a bunch of narratives to cause a whole bunch of dissent and issues throughout social media and just really affecting the game in a way that they shouldn't be affecting. Any manual is an example of what I have said time and time again with a certain group of people who they'll hear other people say stuff and they're like, nah, that's not happening because it's not happening to me. No, there's no way that that's your reality because that's not my reality. And my reality is the only reality that actually happens. And then when they're impacted by it, they're like, oh, man, this is a problem. We need to do something about it. Yeah, if only you had listened to us for the past few years. We have been talking about this ad nauseum, about this fan base that has been following Caitlin, and this fan base, probably when you get down to the root of it, don't care about women's basketball. They just care about supporting this white woman in the sense to then be able to use it to attack black people and to attack black women and to continue to spew their hate under this disguise of being Caitlin Clark fans. And it's an absolute fucking mess. It shouldn't be like this. Now, the last person to kind of come into this whole situation to finally, I guess you can say, address it, but the question is if she, truly addressed it or not, was Caitlin Clark, then who is currently out with a back injury, as they say. There was a, not necessarily a press conference, but I think it was after practice or before practice. They had some media people at the Fever Arena, and they got a chance to ask Caitlin Clark some questions. And it's actually interesting to me because kind of same thing with Stephanie White. She, before she started, like it's the positioning of things, and I always say kind of pay attention to patterns. And so you look at Stephanie White, she went into that press conference and she didn't wait for them to ask the question to then answer the question. She was like, hey, let me address this first and foremost, let me say this thing. And it's typically a way to let me get ahead of this, and so I can go ahead and kind of paint the narrative, so then anything that you ask is now a follow-up to what I had previously put together and rehearsed and was prepared to say, as opposed to not addressing it, you asking me questions, and now I have to freestyle on the spot, and I may say something that's incorrect. So Stephanie White started her press conference by saying, hey, let me go ahead and get this off my chest and let me say this thing. And Caitlin Clark did the exact same thing. She started the press conference off with, hey, let me go ahead and address the elephant in the room real quick.
Just probably start. I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, and obviously I haven't been available for like a week or so. So first of all, I know what you guys are going to ask, and I did think it was a flagrant foul. And our reffing just needs to be better. And, it's tough. Obviously the refs are in a really difficult spot. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world, in my opinion, is to make calls. All you do is get yelled at the whole time by everybody. You're never winning. So I think for us, as the league's just got to do better protecting our players in that regard. I don't really think that it was up for debate. Obviously, it wasn't called in real time. You go back and watch the clip. I think it's pretty straightforward. It's kind of been a discussion for like 3 years now, and I think we really need to do a better job protecting the people in this league. And, you know, obviously I've been involved in a few of those plays, but there's been plenty others across the league that, you know, haven't got called, you know, go back and post game or whatever it is. Teams submit clips, nothing really changes. So I think overall the league just has to do better, and we have to invest in those areas. The technology can get better. We can treat the referees a little bit better, pay them like they're full-time employees. I think things like that. And, you know, I think a lot has obviously come after that. And as I've stood up here and said before, like the harassment, the hate, none of that is okay. That goes for the opposing team we play, that goes for my teammates, that goes for my coaches. You know, there should never be question of character. Like I've always stood up here and said that, and that's truly what I believe. That's how I was raised. So, you know, none of that is okay, and I don't want anybody to ever experience that. And, you know, I think it can be really frustrating to me at times, and I think it's difficult. I think a lot of people sometimes think I'm a robot. I'm not a robot. I have emotions, I have feelings, and it can be really difficult to go through a lot of that. And, you know, I'm 24 years old trying to navigate a lot, and I think at times you know, I've been in this world for 4 years now, and you would never change any of it, but there are times that it is hard, and there are times that, you know, it probably affects me a little bit more than I do put on, and, you know, I would never change any of that for the world, but I think it's important that people do remember that part of it too. So, you know, at the same time, it's really interesting to me because, you know, even I turned the TV on Sunday, and that game was on Wednesday, and that's all people are still talking about. And I feel like that's just a real disservice to our league. Like and I get it. You talk about it. You talk about whether it's flagrant. You talk about whatever it is. But to continue to beat down, and then for the narrative to be taken other places that is really just that's just really not acceptable, I think is just, it's hard to see, you know, and it's a disservice to my team, but it's also a disservice to the other teams in this league and other players in this league. There's so much amazing talent, and there's so many amazing players that are playing at an incredibly high rate. And I remember, I think it was Sunday or Saturday, whatever day that was, I remember like watching them discuss it on TV, and I didn't know they were going to discuss it. I was just watching the other games because I try to watch as much as I can, and I honestly felt bad for the players that were playing the games those days. And also I felt bad for my teammates. They played on Friday, and they dominated, and they played really well, and nobody wanted to talk about that. They were just worried about everything else. So, and there had been, you know, I think 10 plus other games that had already happened to that point. So, you know, I think it's all of our jobs to help refocus the narratives a lot of the times, and we can do better at that. And I think it'll help our game grow a lot more. And that goes for obviously the fever and whatever, but at the same time, you know, you guys are here in this arena every time we play, and the amount of people that are passionate and love the game and respect the other team, and the young girls and the young boys that show up, like, we can't lose sight of that. And that's whether we're here at home and whether we're on the road. And, you know, there's a lot of really, really great people that, you know, love this league and love our organization. And, you know, I'm thankful to be here in an organization that has my back and will always stand up for me. And, you know, I think we can't ever lose sight of that. Like, the joy and the fire and the fun, like, that's why you play this game. And I think it kind of goes back to a little bit of my frustration. Like, I remember seeing a headline is like, and I don't remember who wrote this, and I try to stay away from social media as much as I can, but sometimes it can be hard. Like, I need to be aware of certain things, and obviously my team makes me aware of certain things. And it was like, the headline read like, this season has been everything but fun, and they're just full of frustration for Clark and the Fever. And I'm like, no one ever asked me that. Nobody ever asked me that. Like, that's wrong. Like, discuss my play. Discuss if I played bad. Discuss if I played good. Like, discuss our play. And at times I understand there's other things that need to be talked about. Great, whatever. But let's continue to move on, and, you know, things like that. And but I think just focusing on the joy and the amazing parts of this game, like I said, I think it's sometimes a disservice to not only our team but to everybody else. And you know, let's get back to a lot more smiling and positivity. I think our world could use a lot of that. And then moving on, I know everybody's going to ask about my health.
So yeah, she also kind of similar to Stephanie White addressed the elephant in the room while also making sure to kind of tiptoe around the actual situation and what's going on. And I will say this, I do sympathize for Caitlin Clark because I am a fan of hers. I will never act like I'm not a fan of hers. she's a good basketball player. She could hoop. She's dope. My issue with her is more so how they hype her up as, the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I have just always been the type of person who I'm always upset with that. That's just how my autistic brain works. I remember growing up as a WWE fan during the Attitude Era, and everyone loved Stone Cold and The Rock. And no, I was a Triple H guy, because it was like, I don't care about those guys at the top that everybody loved. Stone Cold was just a brawler. There was nothing technical about what he did. The Rock was, catchphrases and all that. But Triple H, he was the technician that would do all the moves and all that. And like, that's what wrestling was to me. And so that's the reason why, I rocked with him and not really with the other group. So yeah, I sympathize with Caitlin Clark, because quite frankly, she seems like the type of person who she just wants to hoop. That's all she wants to do. She loves basketball. She just wants to hoop. And that's what she wants to focus on. But then the unfortunate part of it is there's all this other racial animosity and shit coming on, behind the scenes, which she unfortunately does have to address. And I know people immediately, and I've seen community notes on Twitter where people are like, oh, she's addressed it before. She's addressed it before. Yes, she has addressed it in written interviews where she's responded to some stuff. And I think the first time was like after everything that happened against LSU and Iowa, she didn't really say anything, which was understandable, because in women's basketball, especially if you're a team that goes far in the playoffs, you go directly from the playoffs in March Madness directly into the WNBA draft and directly into training. You go right into, your rookie season. And so she didn't really say anything until after that first season was over, which was understandable. And then, there's been a couple other times that she's addressed it, but I really think that all of this could have been addressed a lot sooner if they had a straight up press conference where she, announced it directly that I denounce all of this racism in my name. Like, if she really dove head first. But all this kind of reactionary stuff is the reason why I think it's boiled to where it is. And to this day, she still doesn't want to fully address it. And maybe part of it is because she's unaware of how bad it is, because it sounded like she said that I avoid social media, but I do hear or see things that my teammates show me. And unfortunately, one of those teammates is MAGA Barbie, Sophia Cunningham. So who knows what she's being shown by those teammates? And so it puts her in an unfortunate situation. And I do feel bad for her, because she seems, again, like a person who just wants to hoop. But unfortunately, we live in a world today where you are attached to something that is not going to allow you to just hoop. And as long as you keep kicking this down, kicking this bucket down the road, as you continue to fucking show up to shit like Morgan Waller's concert and all that, you are going to be affiliated with white supremacy. And you really need to come out and denounce it, or this stain is going to continue to stay on top of you. And unfortunately, the WNBA will continue to get less and less fun, as the bullshit that comes from your fans is actually what's ruining it. And quite frankly, I feel bad for Caitlin Clark. It's hard to say that because, she's a woman with a privilege who has so many benefits in this world. But again, let's take all that aside. But I do feel bad for her, because this is a situation that's way bigger and beyond her. But she unfortunately is the face of it. And with great power comes great responsibility. Now, more so, I think the issue at hand of what's going on, it always goes up top. I always kind of say that we live in this society where all of the problems kind of start up top with the people in control, but then unfortunately everything kind of rolls down to the bottom, and then we end up fighting with the working class, if you will. And even if that working class is millionaire basketball players, it's still the working class compared to the people up top that are making the real money. I always use the example of like when you go to Walmart and you before they start putting all the self-checkout lanes, you would go to Walmart and there would be, fucking 30 lines and only one of them are open. And then people would be like, yelling at the cashier, how dare you only have one line open? And it's not the cashier's fault. They just fucking work there. And even you can get mad at the manager at Walmart, but they're also not the one that decided that. They get the budget from the higher ups, and the budgets tell them, hey, you only have X amount of hours for X amount of employees. And so then therefore you run into these situations where there's only one fucking cashier available because the budget is not in place for you to have more cashiers available. And then furthermore, a lot of these places have the situations where you're just kind of overbooked with the amount of work that you guys have to get with the minimal amount of staff. So then, hey, I can't have fucking 5 registers open to make sure that everybody can seamlessly go through a lane, without having to go through line, because I got this other shit that needs to get cleaned. I got this that needs to get stocked. I know I experienced that firsthand being a manager for Goodwill, and the shit that they expected us to be able to do with the small amount of people and managing the warehouse and managing the cashier and the registers and keeping the store clean. It was always an impossible task every single day. But again, y'all will never get mad at the corporations. You're going to get mad at the frontline employees. And I think the same thing is kind of happening here. While there is some things I think Caitlyn could have did, especially in the beginning when this first started to bubble, like this could have been the head of the snake could have been chopped off at the very beginning, and maybe it wouldn't have turned into this. But even outside of that, I think a lot of the issues go up top. And one of the issues, going back to what Shanae had said about the the differences in how the games are officiated, I think that comes down to how the WNBA ref situation is as compared to the NBA. So even taking money out of the equation, the NBA officials are salaried employees who make so much amount per game, but they're salaried employees for the NBA, and then they receive bonuses if they go into the postseason and the finals and all that. But again, I reiterate, they are salaried employees for the NBA. But when it comes to the WNBA, these officials are independent contractors who are paid on a strict per game basis. So it's not like they actually work for the WNBA. These are independent contractors. And the problem with independent contractors is it's very difficult to kind of keep the level of consistency at a level, because these people actually don't work for you. They're contractors. And so as opposed to having someone who works for you, if there's inconsistencies, you could be like, hey, man, I'm going to write you up for this, or, I'm going to coach you for that, so on and so forth, because I need you to get to the standard that all of us hold. That's what you can do with salaried employees, actual employees for a company. But when there's independent contractors, you kind of get what you get. There's a bid that's put out, and then whoever accepts the contract, they accept the contract, and then they do what they do. And I think that's part of the reason why you see this situation where some games are very physical, other games, every foul is being called. And then that's the reason why you see this thing with players where, quite frankly, what y'all claim is happening to Caitlin Clark, I have seen more so with Angel Reese, where there are countless times of Angel Reese, getting called for, touch fouls while getting beat up down there, not getting called for fouls. Like, there is a disparity, and it's a lot of these refs who are independent contractors who are officiating the game and the players how they see fit, and they don't have anything to answer to because they don't actually work for the WNBA, so they're not going to go through performance reviews or anything like that. So I think that's one of the main things they need to clean up, is get these referees in the net CBA as actual salaried employees, so then we could actually have some quality control with what's going on, and then maybe we can find some consistency with the reffing across games, so then we don't run into this situation where it's like, oh, when this ref did this game, this happened, but then when Caitlin Clark played, this happened. Like, that's part of what adds to the conspiracy, because that is, again, the thing. If there are inconsistencies and nobody up top explaining why these inconsistencies happen, it's human nature for us to use our brains to try to figure out our own answer. And quite frankly, with all the racial shit that's going on with the WNBA, we're always going to fall back with it having something to do with race. And then lastly, the other thing is quite possibly the commissioner, Cathy, maybe she's a piece of shit that needs to go.
There's no sense in sugarcoating this. Cathy Engelbert, the current commissioner of the WNBA, is a bigot, participates in misogynoir and should be removed from her position. I say this following the recent suspension of Alyssa Thomas of the Phoenix Mercury, coinciding with a retroactive Flagrant 2 foul call after a game against the Indiana Fever. Alyssa Thomas, who in 2024 stated that in all of her years playing in the WNBA, prior to the arrival of Caitlin Clark, she never received such vile and hateful messages from people, this being both online and beyond. Cathy and the league responded with no space for hate in the following season. But that wasn't until after appearing on CNBC's Power Lunch, where she explained that the WNBA and its players are making a lot more money due to a rivalry, media manufactured, mind you, between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese along racial lines. This response she gave in 2024 after being asked about the bigotry being experienced by players in the league. Cathy would be subsequently called out for her insensitive remarks, notably by Women's National Basketball Players Association Executive Director Terry Jackson. Cathy responded by taking to social media and condemning bigotry. Unfortunately, the damage was already done. Now back to that no space for hate. During the 2025 WNBA season, Caitlin Clark and Fever fans openly harassed Angel Reese, Alisha Gray, and Sanaya Rivers. There was even an investigation into the Angel situation, which resulted in nothing. But given the WNBA's track record on bigotry, are we really surprised? Cathy is always reactive, never proactive when it comes to protecting Black lives. It took Alyssa Thomas calling out Cathy via interview for a public statement to be released. Sound familiar? A public spokesperson has since come out and stated that Cathy and Alyssa have exchanged text, and Cathy even offered to get on the phone with Alyssa. Texting after people have been threatening Alyssa's life? Mind you, Dewana Bonner, Alyssa's partner, has come out stating that Alyssa actually initiated these text messages. Dewana has also been on the receiving end of harmful messages due to her joining and quickly leaving the Indiana Fever last season. Oh, and Stephanie White, you're part of the problem too. Talking about those people who are spreading hate and bigotry toward Alyssa Thomas aren't Fever fans.
In my heart of hearts, I believe, not coming from WNBA fans, Indiana Fever fans.
That lets them off the hook. Yes, many of these people harming Black players are Clark and Fever fans. Might I remind you that Stephanie White is an example of how you can be non-Black and have a Black partner, kids, or a friend and still be bigoted. Word to Alexis Ohanian. Word to Cathy as well, Miss "Well, I have Black friends." You thought that dancing with the stud buds on their stream during last year's All-Star Weekend could save you? That season ended with Nafisa Collier saying, "You are a terrible leader."
We have the best fans in the world. But right now, we have the worst leadership in the world.
And despite the constant criticism, the boos from fans, you still show up, hiding behind political correctness and a smile. Well, let's take off that mask. Cathy is a benevolent slave master, as contradictory as that sounds, presiding over Black players, trying to act as though she's an ally. Think Benedict Cumberbatch in 12 Years a Slave. Cathy is the European-American woman who invites you to an adult sleepover where you're the only Black woman present. Rest in peace, Tamla Horsford. Cathy is the Black woman what water is to Black hair. She expects Black women to shrink for profit and personal gain. Cathy is Rumpelstiltskin. Black women already have it hard enough existing. Now you want to dangle some money and endorsements in their face in exchange for their humanity? Oh, and I'm aware that Cathy ain't the only one pulling strings. Adam Silver, you're just as liable. What yo Voldemort looking at? Kurt Barlow looking at? Eustace from Courage the Cowardly Dog looking at? I said it once and I'll say it again. Protect Black women is not just some rally cry or a chant. It's a way of life for some of us, and whoever's standing in my way will fall.
Let him cook. But man, at the end of the day, who knows? Like this world is a mess, and as I always say, we're all victims of the algorithm. All of us are in a position where none of us know the truth to anyone's hearts or anyone's motivations. We're all victims of the information that we receive, that we see online, and all of us have different algorithms that tell different stories that align with our bias. And sometimes that bias is not, incorrect. Going back to that woman at the beginning who was dating Chud the Builder, and she even admitted that the guy kind of seemed like a possible serial killer, but she thought he was pretty. So that was the reason why she hollered at him. That's the reason why she dated him, even though, again, he looked like a serial killer. We're all, we have certain biases, and sometimes we're correct, but we're always at the mercy of our perspective from the lives that we live and from the information that we're getting online. So at the end of the day, all we can do is continue to navigate through this world based on our vantage point. our position, what physical place, what perspective that has been afforded to us to help us understand things from whatever the situation is. And sometimes that vantage point can lead you to be a fucking hateful white supremacist. And sometimes that vantage point could help you to kind of see through the bullshit to see what is going on. But the question is, will we ever come together as a collective and all have the same strategic view of the situation so then we can truly stop the hate and bring together the love? And I don't know if that'll ever happen as long as the narratives online are controlled by the algorithm. And we continue to feed into this fear, this guilt, this anger, and we continue to be blinded by our own personal biases. Until next time.
Hey babe, once you get in the truck, let's sip a little click, slide up in the cut. Get the Vaseline, let me fuck your butt. It ain't that serious. I'm getting money, it's plain to see. I'm bigger bell, bitch, come and fuck with me. Climb on top and make love to me. I make you delirious. Thought she had me in the palm of her hand, cause it showed her respect. You ain't heard of the bigger belly, got his bitches in check. Just let it chill and time up the bed. Mommy was mean, probably about a 9 on the scale. She was heavy on the ass, my Bessie was on the glass. Ball spin and the Maserati was heavy on the. See me ride shotgun and then she on the dick. Started off in the automatic, now she driving the stick. I'm moving, I pick, stick and I move. Mommy lean back, kick off your shoes, just get up in the groove. Put on the rubber, spit on the push, spit up in the